Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Apostle Aladdin. I make videos and I host live streams talking about Islam critically and leaving Islam and other related topics. On that note, we have a live stream. We had a live stream yesterday where I was meant to talk to Muslims, questioning Muslims and ex-Muslims about what they find doubtful about Islam or what made them doubt the religion, or if they're still thinking about it, what's holding them back from leaving the religion, or what's holding them in the religion, topics of that nature. And we have a bunch of very interesting callers lined up. We spoke to a few of them yesterday. We have a few more today. I don't think I'll be taking any new callers just because we have a bunch of them already. But if that changes, keep an eye on the live chat. I will let you know. You might have the opportunity to join the live stream today as a caller yourself. But for the time being, I'm excited to speak to those who have showed up today for the stream. Please feel free to participate in the live chat. I love audience participation. It really helps the live stream, and it's a fun time. So thank you for being here. Without further ado, let's start by speaking to Lily. Lily, I hope you're ready because I'm adding you to the live stream now. Hi, Lily. Can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Hello.
Welcome to the stream, and thanks for waiting.
Thank you.
So please tell us a bit about you and what you want to chat about today.
Also, I just wanted to apologize for cursing the stream yesterday.
That was amazing. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, I just wanted to call in to talk about my experience, my doubts with Islam. Um, Obviously. So
Mhm.
I am a convert. I converted about 10 months ago, something like that. Um, so I wasn't, born into it or anything. My background is half Arab, half Hispanic. Um, and but none of my family is Muslim or anything. Um, but yeah, I started having doubts maybe like 3 months ago, and then it got really, really strong about a month ago. And what originally gave me doubts was, so every time I would pray Fajr or Isha, I would try to read at least one verse from the Quran, because I wanted to be a good Muslim. um, and I came across a story of Musa and Qadr. I always forget his
Al-Khadr,
name.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Um, and about him killing the little boy and all that, and I had an issue with that, and so that's when I was kind of like, okay, I don't like that. So of course, people around me, they said to go ask a sheikh, you know,
Mhm.
w- uh, what the story's about, and you'll get a better answer than from any of us. So that's what I did, and I had a bunch of other questions as well about homosexuality and how it's viewed, and that comes with like any, I think, Abrahamic religion and maybe some other religions out there. The hatred or kind of not accepting homosexuality. And then I had questions about, like, the typical ones of like, how am I supposed to accept my family going to hell? Anyway, so that's when
Mhm.
it all started. And so I guess I could start with how I was drawn to Islam.
Sure.
Um,
Which was 10 months ago, right?
yeah, around there. It was during Ramadan.
Okay.
So and I'm not getting political or anything, but I had gone to a Palestinian protest, and they were giving out Qur'ans there. And so actually, like a week before that, I had gone out for some drinks with some friends, kind of to take the edge off of things. And I was talking to the bartender, and he was in the army or something like that, and we were talking about the whole situation, and he was like, well, have you ever read the Quran? And I was like, actually, no. So then I was like, you know what, I'm gonna read the Quran just to educate myself, because everybody's got something to say about it, and I wanted to make my own opinion about it. So
So, sorry to
no,
confirm, it
no,
was
no.
the bartender
Yeah.
who asked you, was the bartender Muslim or from Muslim background?
No, 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 no,
Just,
no.
just saying, have you read it?
No. Well, because we were talking about the whole conflict
Mhm.
going on, and it came up, the religion came up, and um, so then he asked me, he's like, well, have you ever read the Quran? It's very violent and stuff like that. And so that's when I was like, I should take it upon myself to make that the decision for myself of whether I
Mhm.
think it's violent or not. Um,
A Muslim might point to that part of the story and be like, "Subhanallah, even at a bar, God found a way to make
it's
that
come up
clear."
in the bar, yeah, it'll
Yeah,
come up anywhere,
yeah,
mashallah.
yeah.
But anyway, so yeah, so I got the Quran and it was the obviously translation and I started reading it and but I didn't read too much and then yeah, I don't want to get too into details, but I met somebody and I was kind of asking them questions about it and they weren't forcing me or anything and some things happened like feelings wise. I'm not going to get into it. But then one day I kind of asked, I was like, you want to listen to the Quran together? And then we did. And I had an emotional response to it. And I think a lot of people do, the way it's recited, it's very melodic and emotional, there's something to it. And I mean, I'm not a musician now, but I used to be. And um, so I could see why
Mhm,
it brings on an emotional response. But anyway, so then I was like, oh man, I've never felt that before, or at least I thought I never felt that before. I don't know what was going on. And that's when I was like, you know what? Screw it. I'll take my Shahada. So then I did over the phone. And, people were just, I was talking to somebody that was ready to do it for me, like help me recite it and all that. And I told him, I was like, we can do it over the phone. And he was like, you can do it anytime you're ready, any place. Like he just wanted me to do it.
mhm.
So,
Sorry, just to get the
no, go ahead.
characters clarified. So, were you saying there were feelings involved for someone who's Muslim?
Yes.
Okay. And were they present? Why am I saying they? Was he present?
Yeah, exactly. There's no other option.
Right. And I'll be gender inclusive in this situation.
Uh-huh.
It was a guy. Um, and was he present when you were deciding on converting, or was that?
Totally. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Okay.
He was answering questions. He was never pressuring me though. He never pressured me. Um, I'm gonna expose myself here. I'm a little impulsive sometimes, and so I was, caught up in the emotions, and it just kind of happened.
Mhm.
Um, but anyway, so then
And
I
and the person over the phone, was that the
different guy.
okay?
He
Who
wasn't
was?
a.
So
Go
yeah, go
ahead.
ahead.
Sorry.
I was gonna ask you, like, was he some kind of religious authority, or why?
So he was actually the husband of a friend of mine that was organizing the protest I was going to. I had become really close to her, and she's Muslim, and so they're Muslim.
Mhm.
And I was telling her that I was kind of interested, and she was like, "Well, you let me know, and my husband can help you take your shahada," and so that's how I did it.
Right.
Um, but yeah, so sorry if I'm all over the place. I get a little
No,
like.
no, that's okay. And if I ask about something and you're not comfortable getting into details, just tell
Mhm.
me.
I'll let you know.
We can go over that.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
yeah. So, yeah, so then I did that and in the beginning, of course, like I'm just going to tell you all the stuff that was fed to me like I wrote some notes down just in case I got off track, but Khadija, I don't know how to pronounce it correctly,
The
but
second time you got it right. Yeah, Khadija.
okay,
Yeah.
Khadija. It's embarrassing because my mom speaks Arabic and I can't. I'm super mad about it. But anyway, um, so yeah, I was always like, it was always brought up like, oh, she was a businesswoman and she was also older than the prophet and he married an older woman. I'm like, oh my God, that's so cool. I didn't know that Islam was so progressive. Like, wow. Um, and about women, the Islam was the first religion to give women the right to divorce and hijab is a choice and kind of
I
stuff
mean,
like that.
that's I'll let you continue the story, but
No, go ahead. Go. What were you gonna say?
it's very debatable. Like,
Mhm.
by the Islamic terms, the woman doesn't have the right to divorce in the same way that a man has the right to
Exactly.
at
Exactly.
all. But just
Yeah.
that's just for the audience, so in case
Mhm.
someone's listening out there. But please continue the story.
Yeah. No, yeah, and I actually learned that from your channel. I was like, "What
Mhm,
the heck?" I'm gonna try not
mhm.
to curse. But anyway, so yeah, so it was just a bunch of stuff like that, and I, it's so crazy. So I'll tell you a little bit about my background before Islam. So I grew up. My mother, I guess, was like came from a Roman Catholic kind of thing, but she wasn't really that religious. And my father became Christian when he met my stepmother and we would go to church, every other Sunday. Um, and that's how I grew up. And I got baptized and I got my first communion, but it wasn't really my choice. Like it was kind of my mother and my father were like, "You're gonna do this and you're gonna do that," and I was like, "All right, I'm a child. I don't know what I'm doing."
Yeah.
So
That's
then
that's how it usually is with religion, right? Like
exactly,
you go to
exactly.
church or the
Mhm.
mosque because your parents said you have to.
It's
Yeah,
just a thing that you do, exactly.
yeah.
Um, and then in high school, I was, kind of growing into my own mind, and I was like, "You know what? This religion stuff makes me feel weird. I don't really like it. I don't think I wanna be religious anymore." Um, so I stopped being religious for a really long time. I guess you could ca I guess I was calling myself, like, whatever, agnostic or whatever, but I don't really like to put a label on anything because, like, I try not to be like, "These are my ideas," and put myself in a little box of, like, "This is what I believe."
Mhm.
Um, so, I was agnostic for a very long time, and then this happened. So, it was just so weird. It's kind of hard to explain, but I was almost witnessing myself. The non-religious side of me was witnessing myself become religious and kind of, like, grasp onto these ideas that I never thought I would ever grasp onto again, and a part of me feels like I never actually believed it as I was learning about these things, like, it was weird, almost watching myself become indoctrinated, like, I was aware of what was happening, but I wasn't stopping it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and, may I ask,
Mhm.
why were you not stopping it? Was it like a enjoyable time, or did you feel like you were pressured in some way, or you wanted to do it, or
Um,
like you wanted it to be true? Like,
I
what
wanted it
was it?
to be, my mind knew what was going on, but my heart didn't want it to be like, I wanted to believe it was true. Also, like I mentioned, there were feelings involved for somebody. I was like imagining a certain future. And also obviously it felt good to like be a part of something,
Mhm,
when I first converted, I went to the mosque. The lady that was running the protest, she was like, "Come to the mosque with me during Ramadan." And I was like, "Awesome, yeah, I've never been to one." So she took me, and I didn't have like hijab or anything yet. So I was wearing like this like head bandana kind of thing. And I went in, and everyone was like, nobody, obviously people were like, "What the heck, this girl?" Like, who is this girl wearing a freaking bandana in here? Um, and at the end of like the service, the imam was like talking, and he was like, "By the way, we have a convert, this is her name, blah blah blah." And everybody was like, "Oh," they turned and looked at me. I was like, "Oh my god, like, I don't really like people
Wait,
looking
you
at
you
me."
had converted at that point?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
This
yeah,
was like, I went like the weekend of the week that I had converted,
right,
or
and
something
then
like that.
yeah, and that was your first, I guess, meeting of the community
Yes.
was, "Hey, everybody, look at her, she's a new convert."
She's a convert and she's white. Yeah. Well,
Right,
I'm white passing, whatever.
yeah.
But anyway, so yeah, so everybody was like
Wait,
looking.
before we continue further,
No,
it's
go
it's
ahead.
funny that I wrote these 3 words down,
Mhm.
and I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, they play a huge role in your conversion story. I
Mhm.
wrote down Palestine, love, and Ramadan.
Why do you gotta put me in a box like that?
I
Um,
mean, and let me tell you my theory here, and, like, tell
okay.
me how wrong I am.
Mhm.
Um, love, we all know love, to some
Yeah.
extent, or we think we know love. When
Mhm.
you have feelings for someone, you want to be with them, and that is the best way to be with them. Obviously, it's a
Mhm.
motivation to go in the direction of converting to a religion.
Some of us will
Um
do anything for it, yeah.
yeah, and we don't have to psychoanalyze that or anything. I'm just mentioning that it's a factor for a lot of people because
Mhm.
you are not the first, nor will
Yeah.
you be the last person to tell me a story that involves being in a relationship with a Muslim,
Mhm.
and to varying extents. Like sometimes it's they're already in a relationship, sometimes they know the person and they think, the barrier is the religion. Sometimes they've been in a relationship for a while and the person's okay with them not being Muslim, and then they change their mind, and so
Yeah,
on
or
and
when
so
it's, like,
forth.
time to marry, it's like, "Well, my
Exactly. Yeah.
family." Yeah, yeah,
And
totally.
the pressure that's being applied on the Muslim person by their surroundings and their family might
Mhm.
change how they behave towards you, or like also,
Yeah.
kind of offload some of that pressure on you.
Mhm.
So none of that is meant, I'm not highlighting this to
No,
kind
no,
of
I'm not offended.
call you out.
I promise.
Um, But it's also for people listening and watching. If you're in a situation like this, you're not alone, because
Mhm,
usually who do you go to talk to about this kind of thing? And I guess you're familiar with that.
mhm.
Most of the people that are available to chat with about that situation would be other Muslims, new
Yeah,
members of the community, or members of the community that you're new to.
yeah.
Um, yeah, and the other two, like
Sorry, go ahead.
Palestine and Ramadan, yeah.
Mhm,
So it's that sense of, you know, well, activism is one thing, and standing
Yeah.
up for people's rights and feeling
Yeah.
like you're trying to make a change in the world,
Mhm.
and then community also strung into that.
Yeah.
That's Ramadan. There's a community, there's people
Exactly.
hanging out. It's like a fiesta, as like a
Mhm.
party,
Mhm.
a sober one, just very hangry people before
A
iftar,
sober
I
one.
guess. Yeah, so all of these things make someone very inclined to act like the rest of the group, or like sort of go along with it because, hey, this is all good, this is new, this is exciting, I want to
Mhm.
be part of this.
And also
So yeah,
everyone seems to be happy in this.
yeah.
Like there's no nobody tells you if they're having doubts in that community, if they are.
Right. Yeah, like you'll never have a discussion during Ramadan with a bunch of other, smiling Muslims about certain things that are problematic or doubts.
Concubines.
Yeah, that's right.
Let's talk about it during Ramadan.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then wait, what was the third one? Oh yeah, you already brought it up, Ramadan.
I mean, yeah, Ramadan and the protest that you went to. And I
Yeah.
guess that's something for viewers at home. If you want to go to such protests, like I'm not dissuading you from being politically active in your city, or choosing whatever cause you find fit, but just be aware that don't let that be sort of a pipeline into
Mhm.
other ideas and beliefs just by familiarity, I guess, or because the majority of people there have that belief.
Yeah.
Because I know I've already spoken to a bunch of people who have a very similar story to you, or at least
Yeah.
parts of the story are similar. But anyway, please continue.
Mhm. Well, actually, I watched one of your videos talking about something that was going on in Canada in front of some sort of old folks' home, a
Mhm.
protest, and then it made me realize how they I don't want to get political. I'm sorry, but it just made me realize how they were really, uh, you know, amplifying like, oh, like this is about Islam, like the war on Islam, but it's like, no, it's just about people, and yeah, so don't get
Like,
sucked
that's
into
that's
like
not
the
why
religion.
you showed up to the protests, right?
No,
Or
definitely
why
not. Yeah,
most people, or a lot of people, didn't show up for that reason, but
exactly.
it's being co-opted to be, about Islam. And
Yeah.
anyway, that was kind of your way in, and
Mhm.
you're telling the part of the story where you converted over the phone, and
Yeah,
then you said the weekend of that week, or
I
within a
went to
week,
the mosque, yeah.
you went to the mosque.
Mhm. And, yeah, so everybody turned and looked at me, and then, like, this one woman came up to me and gave me, like, chocolate-covered dates. Like, they were
That's how they
delicious,
get
by the
you.
way.
That's how they get you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I was like, "Wow, like, these people are so accepting." But what's funny is that an older woman came up to me and she was speaking Arabic, and there was somebody next to me and she was like saying something in Arabic, and I was like, oh, like I only understood some words, and then the woman next to me, she was like, oh, saying something to the woman. Anyway, the woman walked away, the older woman walked away, and I turned to the lady next to me. I was like, what'd she say? And she said, oh, she just said that you should put on a hijab now, like put the hijab on. I was like, dude, I literally like just converted like this week, please. So that was funny, but I didn't think anything of it then. Because she was older and I figured like that was how she thought,
Mhm.
you know.
Well,
Um,
let that be a lesson, I guess, to all the women out there who think that you really have a choice in putting on a hijab.
yeah.
Even if you do, I'm sure a lot of people will be talking around you about you putting on the hijab. So,
And
yeah.
I will say, like, it's a choice in some areas of the world. Depending on where you are, it's a choice, I guess. And I've noticed, I mean, I think everyone, a lot of people have noticed how it's been glamorized as well. Like, it's like a fashion statement, and like, people and if anything, sorry, this is kind of veering off, but when I would like scroll through Instagram and stuff and I'd see all these like hijabis like so pretty, I'm like, damn, why don't I look like that in hijab? Like, and then it makes you even feel like you're not wearing the hijab right because you don't, I don't know, it was weird, it was weird. Anyway,
Mhm.
I digress. um but yeah, so anyway, I went to the mosque, so yeah, then that's when it began. And so even though I don't really want to, I don't know if I wanna say that I'm not Muslim anymore. I feel like I'm not, in my mind, and, like, a lot of my heart feels like it's not, but a bit of me is holding on because of, the second thing on your 3 words.
Love,
Yes.
amor.
Amor.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's very difficult, to let go when you have an attachment to a person. Um, but anyway, so but yeah, so, uh even what was I gonna say? I lost my train of thought. I'm sorry.
That's okay. You're
um,
saying you don't feel like a Muslim. It's
yes,
love
yeah,
that's keeping you
yeah,
attached to it. Yeah.
yeah, and I don't know. Sorry, I'm not reading the chat because I will get distracted and lose
All right.
everything I was thinking.
Close your eyes. Close your eyes.
I'm closing. Um, but yeah, so I guess I'll just okay, that's what I was gonna say. Even though it's been a short amount of time that I've been Muslim, I went deep into it. Like I it was actually so crazy how I mean I stopped listening to music. I was listening to the Quran. I was listening to a podcast about the life of the prophet like during work like I really I was taking Quran classes. Like it got and even my mom of course was concerned and I mean I started wearing the hijab like 3 months into it and she was saying, that's really extreme. And I was like, no, mom, it's not extreme at all. But it was. Um,
All the cool girls were doing it, so
so I, of course, had to do it. I want to be
if
a
all your
cool girl,
friends
mom.
try to jump off a bridge, would you?
I'm going to jump off that bridge, mom. but, um, but yeah, so I really went into it. And so I'll explain, a story that I look back on now. And I just think like, that's so sad. um I was hanging out with my friend and it was me and her mom and my friend. Uh and her mom just recently became like a born again Christian and we were talking about dancing and how like oh like dancing could lead to such horrible like things like people can rub up against you and then oh like it could lead to such inappropriate feelings and blah 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 and I like I love dancing like I it's a great thing to do and it's fun and so as I was having that conversation I was like telling my friend the reasons why dancing is bad but in my head it was almost like as I was trying to convince her I was trying to convince myself. Like I would say like, "Well, it's bad because of this and this," and I didn't fully believe that, but it was almost like I was trying to prove to her like, "Yeah, I truly believe this is a bad thing because of my religion." Um,
Mhm.
it was weird. It was really weird.
What was your friend's tone? Like, was she like, "Uh-huh, uh-huh, I hear you," or more like giving you some pushback on it?
Oh, totally pushing back. I mean, she loves to dance, so she was like, "I don't think dancing is bad," like
And
uh
let me ask you this then.
mhm.
When she would push back harder, would that make you more likely or less likely to defend, your what you were saying?
Hmm. I think I was trying to defend, but not to the point where I sounded like I was so desperate to try to like justify. You know what I mean? Like I didn't want to seem like I have to defend this kind of thing. I don't know.
Mhm,
Uh I guess my point with that story was I was trying to convince myself mostly because I didn't fully believe that. Um and so before I started wearing hijab, I went to a birthday party of hers and I wasn't wearing the hijab and there was music playing and I don't know if you're familiar with salsa music, salsa dancing.
mhm. Yeah, with the
And so
concept, but I can't move to it, but I know
okay,
what it is.
that's okay. um and so there was a guy there and he was a gay guy and I started dancing salsa with him, right? Don't tell anybody this. Everybody watching, don't tell anyone. I was Muslim while I was doing this
Wow.
and I felt like in my head I wasn't thinking about it. And then afterwards, like I think my friend was taking a video of me and I was like, please don't show anybody that like I was so, like scared that someone was gonna see it. And then in my head, as I was dancing and then after I was done dancing, I was thinking like I'm really gonna miss this. Like I'm really gonna miss dancing and just moving my body in public, not in like grotesque ways or anything. And also anybody do whatever you want, but like as long as you're not hurting anyone. But yeah, it was just like a really sad thought to think like, and this is a part of my culture, my Hispanic background, like I would never be able to dance salsa again in public anywhere. It sounds so stupid saying
Mm.
it now, but like, yeah. Um,
Well, I have a blunt question for you because I know
okay.
how a Muslim, listening to this might react.
Mhm.
Um, a Muslim might say, "What? So you left Islam to dance?" or you left
Mhm.
Islam because you like dancing so much. So let
Mm,
me ask you the question this way. If you knew for a fact that Allah was real and Islam is true, like for an absolute fact, you
mhm,
actually knew it, not just believed it,
mhm.
and God told you not to dance, otherwise God will torture you. Um, would you still dance?
That's a tough one because if I know it's real, I would be so scared that I wouldn't wanna dance because I don't
Right,
wanna burn
like if
forever.
Muhammad showed up himself and told you, and Allah showed up and told you, like there was no doubt about it that
Dude, I
actually.
would salute and be like, "Okay, yes, sir, I won't dance again." I
Right.
don't know, I mean, there's a part of me that would wish like, maybe I don't know, I if it was real, I probably wouldn't dance again because then it's real. Then it's like, "Okay, there's a reason to not do this, obviously, I guess." Let me turn that around on you. Would you keep dancing?
Would I keep that? I mean, who said that I dance right now?
Okay, but if you
You
dance.
made that assumption. Um, I'm so averse to dancing that if God was real and God told me to dance, otherwise He will torture me, I'll just go to hell. Um, but yeah, jokes aside, like
Mhm,
I guess that's the point I was getting at is that you didn't actually like. There's a difference between knowing and believing somewhat, or like maybe
mhm.
going along with the idea that God is real,
Yeah,
but you didn't know God is real. You didn't genuinely believe it, and deep down in your heart, kind of thing. You
yeah,
wouldn't bet your life on it. You wouldn't even bet, dancing on it.
yeah,
So I guess for the skeptics out there, the skeptical believers who think you left because you're so arrogant and you want to dance despite God telling you not to.
mhm.
It sounds more like you left because you realized you're sacrificing so much for something you're not even sure is real.
Exactly, exactly, and, um, maybe there were moments where I might have, in my heart believed that maybe it was real, but that's when I didn't know much about it. The more that I learned about it, the more I realized, like, "Okay, this is weird." Like, oh, one thing I wanted to bring up, I don't know how much time I have left, by the way.
I mean, we only have 4 callers today, so
Okay.
I'll be generous. We could do like maybe
Okay, cool.
45 minutes
Yeah,
caller.
because you know what? I didn't deserve to deal with that, mess up yesterday, so
Yeah, you're being compensated with 15 more minutes.
Exactly. Um, so okay, then if we have time, then we have time. So I wanted to bring up a story that you mentioned in one of your videos. By the way, I was super weird when like a month ago, I was like, you okay, I'll start here. I was looking online, like, Muslim having doubts, like the doubts, whatever, Muslims. And of course, like, I don't know if I can name drop, but a certain YouTuber came up that was an apostate. The name, the YouTube name rhymes with apostate. um, but anyway, I saw his videos and it was a little too aggressive for me. I don't want to feel like I'm hating on something. I just wanna feel like I'm learning about it, you know?
Mhm.
Um, and so I didn't like, when I was still kind of in the first, like, stage of really doubting, I was like, "I don't know, that's too much, that's too aggressive for me, I don't wanna feel like, I don't wanna listen to somebody like that because, I don't wanna feel hateful or anything." But then I found you, and so, yeah, it was really weird, and I was, like, watching a lot of your videos, almost as a comfort as well, like, sometimes I would just have it on in the background because it was, like, it would stop me from thinking, like, "Did I make a mistake? Did I do this? Like, is this a mistake for doubting?" And, um, but yeah, so one of your videos that I
Well,
saw.
I
Sorry, go
really appreciate you sharing that with me. I mean,
ahead.
just to be clear, every time I talk to someone on or off camera, they tell me something or another about that.
Yeah,
I'm not, and I'm not putting the caller up to this. We did not discuss
yeah.
this before.
Yeah, 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 sure, sure, sure.
So I really appreciate all the feedback, letting me know that I am helping you,
Mhm,
and everyone still wants to sometimes name drop and say, and that did not help me. I think it's good feedback too. It's good for people to know, what is having what effect on people. So
mhm,
anyway, thank you for that.
mhm, and
I'm
thank
glad to
you.
know. Yeah,
Thank you, because I know it probably takes, like, a lot of time for all the research, and I also really appreciated your sources because anytime that you said something that it's like, "This is in the Quran or it's a hadith," I would look it up because I wanted to make
mhm,
sure you weren't lying. But anyway, you gotta do your own
of course.
diligence.
Yeah.
But yeah, so one thing that you mentioned in one of your videos was how you were one night you were looking up at the sky and you saw a shooting star, and it was like one of your first times seeing a shooting star or something like that. And you were enjoying the moment, but then your Islam brain came and it was like, oh, that's like what was it again? Like a missile or something, like God like sending a meteor. I don't know, something to like push away the jinn or the demons, whatever, from like hearing something, you know.
Mhm.
And then you were saying how like I don't want to look at the night sky and think that. And I didn't know that before I heard that from your video. And then that made me really sad because I love looking at the night sky. And I was like, I don't want to think like that either. I don't want to look at a shooting star and be like, yep, there he goes.
Mhm.
Like I just want to look at the night sky and appreciate it for what it is, a sky. And so, yeah, so that was something that I was just thinking about, a lot of things like that, that I would have to believe these like stories that, to me, I would say personally, to me, I don't know if there are believers watching, but to me personally are mythological. They feel really mythological. Um so yeah, so do you have anything to
That's a
say
very good point that I just want to repeat for the people out there. You said something earlier, which is that, when you didn't know a lot of details, you kind of believed in it,
to that?
right?
Yeah.
But the more that you know, the more that you discovered about Islam, the more that you realized, well, I have to believe in that too. I can't,
Mhm.
like, this doesn't
There's no
really make sense.
choice. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Um,
sorry, go ahead. I'm sorry.
that's fine. Go for it. I'll get back to it.
Okay, you said in another video, you're like, "Oh, I love to talk, but I'm really trying to be a good listener." I'm also trying to do the same. Um,
Go for it.
but another thing was like Judgment Day, right?
Mhm.
The more I learned about Judgment Day, that we're all gonna be like resurrected and we're all just like waiting in our graves, and depending on whether you're good or bad, um, you're either gonna feel like being in your grave is like a million years, of torture and all that stuff, or it's gonna be like you're asleep and then you wake up and you're like, "Hey, everybody, I'm ready to be judged," you know?
Mhm.
And then we're
Only
also
God can judge me, and He's about to. And
and then, like, we're all just gonna be standing there naked, and apparently we're not gonna be worried about it because it's like, "Oh my god, dude, we're, like, standing in front of
Mhm.
God, it's time." And I was just, like, really I'm a visual kind of person sometimes, and in my head, I was, like, thinking about that image. I was like, "Okay, we're gonna be standing on, like, golden clouds, and there's gonna be, like, gates in front of us, and we're not gonna see God, but we might hear him, I don't know, and then we're all just gonna be standing there naked," and it was just I didn't know if I could believe that. I didn't know if I could believe that fully with my whole heart. Um, yeah, it was just a weird thing to imagine. Uh, yeah, I don't know.
I want to, like, repeat, essentially summarize what you're saying. The more that you find out, the
Mhm,
harder it is to believe. And there are Muslims out there who are adamant that they believe very strongly. And when they find out about details that seem kind of fishy, or, like,
mhm,
kind of funny, kind of weird, kind of pointless, maybe,
yeah.
they are either told to think, or they think to themselves that the more that you know, the more that the devil tries to get to you, or the more that,
Shaitan.
someone's trying to muddy the waters, or, yeah.
Mhm,
So don't focus on the details. Some
yeah,
might say the devil's in the details.
yeah.
But I think it's almost like, when you have a partner and they tell you a lie. If they just tell you, I was late at the office, that's believable. But if they start giving you details and the details don't fit, it gets
Mhm,
harder and harder to believe with the more details that you get. So it's
yep,
not that, sure, it could be that there's a devil messing with your head and all that kind of stuff. But the simpler, realistic explanation is that the more information you have, the more plot holes you find, and the
mhm,
sillier it all seems.
mhm, yep,
So, before you judge people who don't believe in the religion, think, how can I get the biggest amount of information, and not just,
mhm.
in a way that paints the religion in a good way, but just objectively the largest amount of info, and make that decision yourself.
Yeah, and that's another thing about, like, non-believers and all that. I was actually talking to my friend yesterday that he had a pretty big conversion to Catholicism, and I've been having, discussions with him, and it's been really great. I like talking about this stuff, whether or not I'm religious or not, you know? It's nice to hear different perspectives and all that stuff, and I wish everybody felt like that. But, anyway, I was talking to him, and we were talking about, dang, s I forgot the point I was gonna make, but I'll just say we were talking about, all this stuff, and he was telling me about I guess I'll go into things that maybe also kind of make me question, like, well, wait, like if these things happen, maybe I am wrong, you know? So he
Mhm.
was telling me about an experience he had where his grandmother became very sick. I don't know if it was a stroke or something, but his grandmother became very sick and she got to the point where she couldn't walk, she couldn't talk, nothing. And before that happened to her, he had a very bad interaction with her. He was, it was like a fight or something. And one night he said that he prayed really hard to God. He was like, God, please, like, give me at least one moment of her being in reality with us so I can apologize. Right? He just wanted to apologize to her for the interaction they had. And apparently the next day she was boom. She could everything, she could understand everything. She was there with them, and so then he was like, in that moment I was like, no way, like God answered my prayer. So
Mhm.
it's stuff like that where I'm like, okay, is that just, what is that, like manifestation? Or is there a God, like kind of picking and choosing when he wants to show himself. um and so yeah, it's stuff like that that I hear stories like that and I'm like, okay, I'm trying to like think about how that could be possible. What are your thoughts on that? Have you ever talked to anybody that was like, well, I had this experience, and then the experience that they actually have is kind of, because some of the experiences are like not that, convincing, but that one I would say was pretty convincing for me.
Mhm. Which God did they pray to?
God, the Catholic God. I don't know. That one. The
Right.
Christian Catholic God.
Um, well, I've heard stories like that from people from different backgrounds, different religions,
Yeah.
some even polytheists, and as we know, if we're thinking about Allah, Allah exclusively does not like polytheism, like it
Hmm.
explicitly says so. So I'd imagine if someone in praying to a polytheistic kind of God or a God that's not the Abrahamic God, and that gets answered, then we can rule out that it's Allah, maybe. So for the purposes of, if you're a Muslim watching this, just other people getting their prayers answered should rule out your religion. But
Hmm.
in a larger sense,
Oh
what
yeah.
happens when you pray for something and it doesn't happen, or the opposite of that happens? Like, say your
Hmm.
friend, or a believer friend of yours prayed to God that their grandma or whoever gets better, and they die, like that night or the next day or a week later. Does that disprove God? Well,
Well,
no. Go ahead.
sorry, I was gonna say, like, some believers would just be like, well, then that was God's will, like, to just put her out of her misery and, like, bring her to him. Now she's in peace and now she's, like, pain-free. I
Mhm.
think that would be, like, their explanation, or, like, their, way
Right.
of, yeah, explaining it.
So it's not a fair experiment where you get to, like, basically any outcome that happens proves God, or like is okay with the conclusion that God is real. There is no outcome of that experiment that could happen where you can point to it and say, "See, God is not real."
Yeah.
So it's kind of, it's an unfair experiment from the start.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, and I didn't think about it like that, that someone in a different religion, if their prayer gets answered, then that would completely, like, null and void your religion, because then it's like, okay, well, another God answered somebody else's prayer. So it's like,
and a
um,
believer can still find a way to rationalize that, either that their God is so nice that they accepted the prayer even though it wasn't directed towards them, and maybe that's going to help them find the true religion in the future. Maybe it's just this has nothing to do with God responding, and sometimes good things happen,
mhm,
but not the other times, because prayer is still kind of real. There are ways of rationalizing that, but the simplest explanation to me seems that no prayer has any effect on anything except the effect that it has on the person doing the prayer. If
mhm,
they believe it, it gives them relief to some extent. And it makes them, ready to explain any positive outcome or negative outcome as a result of that prayer. So it's never really convinced me in any way or swayed me towards believing that there is a God for
mhm,
all of these reasons. And also, I'd be a bit angry with God, or confused, let's say, if God bothered to answer this one prayer, but not, all the other prayers for things that are more urgent and more impactful. So, like people who pray for God at soccer games. You really think that God helped you score that goal?
mhm. We won because of God.
Yeah. But God wasn't doing anything
But
about
then a
war,
kid died. Exactly,
you
exactly.
know?
So then that kind of brings me to, like, I don't know how you feel about this stuff. I don't really know how I feel about it either, but, like, like manifestation, and like if you really want something and you really think about it and really focus on it, that it'll come to fruition. Like, do you think that is something, I don't know, or is
Mm,
everything just by chance?
I mean, what does by chance mean? It's
um
like you mean everything just happens and there is
yeah,
no
and that's it.
order to it.
Yeah.
That's closer to what I believe. I don't think that there's a someone pulling the strings or something pulling the strings or
Or not,
affecting. Yeah,
not someone or something, but you yourself, us, right?
right. Like
I don't
like
know.
so like we're doing something to affect some other dimension or like a fabric that
Yeah,
of
like
existence.
fourth dimension, all that stuff. I don't
Yeah,
know.
no, I
Yeah.
I I don't think so. I think it's more like pattern recognition. So
Mm.
if you and maybe even a mindset, if you think to yourself, if you manifest, "I'm gonna do great today. I'm good at my job," that kinda stuff, you're more likely to do great and do good at your job.
Yeah,
Uh,
well, it's not changing the world outside of you, it's changing inside of you and how you feel about what's happening to you.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
And sometimes that makes some people think they're too smart for manifesting. Like it's not gonna do anything for me because I know it's not real, and
Mm.
sometimes I feel that way. Um,
You're too smart for us.
for my own good, apparently, but it's a free medicine, and I can't take it. But sometimes it does work by just, reminding myself that if someone else was present in the room and was telling me, "You're gonna fail today, you suck at this," every single day, I'm likely to let that get to me or not feel
Mhm.
motivated to do things. So the opposite must help to some extent.
Yeah.
You know, except if it was like toxic positivity, and it's
Oh,
always
no, I
nagging,
can't do
then
that. Yeah.
yeah,
It's like, come on, be realistic here.
yeah,
Like, there are several emotions a human can feel, and it's okay to be sad and mad, and, you know, I think there's a balance to everything.
right.
Um, but yeah, so yeah, in terms of Islam and all that, getting back to that, I don't really know what I would like to do because I know I don't fully believe in it. I want to believe in the good parts, but I feel like they're not big enough for me to stay. Um, yeah.
So what you mentioned love, earlier, or
Mhm.
I don't know if I want to say love, but you're
The chemicals in our brain that make
right.
us feel love.
That's not what I mean. I mean, I don't want to define what's going on in your relationship or
Yeah,
like
for
put any
sure.
pressure. Maybe you
Mhm,
never said I love you. I don't
mhm,
know.
mhm,
But whatever that is, whatever's going on with
mhm.
that other
That
person,
thing, yeah, yeah,
that
yeah.
situationship that you're in,
Oh.
um, if that was no longer a factor for whatever reason, say the person really wants to be with you and they don't care and they left the religion, let's say, or this person just travels, goes somewhere else, and you no longer even have a shot with them.
Yeah.
They're just not a factor anymore. Would you still call yourself a Muslim?
No. No, I really wouldn't. Um, I don't even have any doubts about that. I really wouldn't. I for me, I'm not like a super scientific person or anything like that. But I do believe in, like, I'm not gonna believe in something just blindly. Even like if I have doubts about something or if something's pushing me away from something or turning me off to the idea, I'm not gonna just be like, ah, just ignore it. Like that just seems like not
Mhm.
smart. Um, so I don't wanna yeah, I don't wanna ignore the things just to try to be a part of something that I, and I feel like that wouldn't do justice to people that, do believe. I don't wanna insult them by being like, "Yeah, I don't believe all of it, but I believe the parts that I like."
Right.
You know?
It's also, not really honest to yourself when you
Yeah,
just keep saying,
exactly.
"I believe parts of it."
Yeah.
Um,
And, I will say this, one thing that really sucked, for lack of a better word. Like I mentioned, I used to be a musician, and I used to sing, and I still do. Um, but when I became really Muslim, I was like kind of struggling with, well, why? I was thinking like, if music is haram and all that, why would God give people really good singing voices? I'm not talking about myself, but like in general, why would God give the ability to people to sing? Um, and then I started thinking, I was like, oh, maybe it's just to recite the Quran. I was like, maybe my purpose My purpose in terms of singing is so I can recite the Quran super beautifully. But then it's funny because a live stream, like, I don't know, maybe 2 live streams ago, someone said that they had, no, not two. I watched a live stream from a long time ago, I think. And a woman was saying how she can recite the Quran beautifully, but she can't even do it in front of others, or like in front of men at least, or like in the mosque. Um, and so I was like,
What
okay,
if a
well,
man hears and gets aroused
oh my
by
God, God forbid, you know, like,
I wonder if that's a genre out there, reading Quran,
stop.
ASMR.
Maybe, honestly, like, go to sleep. Your girlfriend sings Quran to you, or
Oh
your
my
wife, sorry.
yeah, girlfriend. No, you sound like those couples who delude themselves into
Fatima
thinking
from the mosque is gonna
yeah,
sing Quran to you 10 hours.
and then he'll be thinking, "I wonder how many other guys she sang Quran to," and
They get, hey, at least he has, what is it, ghira?
right, right. That's a
Oh,
whole other topic.
a whole nother topic.
Yeah,
But yeah, so it was crazy how my brain had switched to feeling like maybe my purpose is to sing Quran instead
mhm.
of just being able to sing. And then recently it was my friend's birthday and we went out, and I stopped wearing hijab and all that. So we went to a bar, had a couple of drinks, and we didn't know that there was going to be live music at the place, and a woman started, it was just her and her guitar, and she was singing, and I was just watching her. And recently, oh God, I'm getting personal. As if I haven't already been. But recently I've been thinking, what do I want to do with my life? Like, what do I want to do? My purpose, whatever. What's going to make me happy? Um and the only thing I found that actually makes me feel passion, mo- uh the one of the number one things that makes me feel passion. A lot of things do, but this is like a big one, is performing and music and singing. And every time I see somebody performing, I'm like, oh, I wish I was up there performing. Like, I miss doing that. Um, and as I was watching her, I was like, if I stay Muslim, I will never be able to showcase myself like that and be on a stage again. And this isn't, for all the believers out there, like, it's not because I'm like, "Oh, I want everyone to see me." Like, no, it's because I love to sing and it brings me joy in my heart. Like, for me, I don't know if anyone can relate to this as like a musician or anything, but when I'm on a stage, like, it almost feels like I'm there either by myself, or if I'm with a band, we're all together. Like, it's a, I don't know. I don't think about people are like watching me sing. Like, it's not like a selfish thing, like vanity thing. It's like, it's just a passion. So I was sad because I would be losing that, the ability to do that. Um, and yeah, so that was another reason why I was like, I don't know if I
You know,
want to. Yeah, go
I
ahead.
I'm really tempted to ask for more details because again, you've got a lot of tea to spill today.
So
Um,
much tea, just like
yeah,
yesterday.
and
Do
some of
you
the
like
commenters
chamomile or Earl Grey?
chamomile. I'm a chamomile and peppermint kind of guy.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, and some of the commenters were even saying that they would love to
Mhm.
hear more from you. So
Okay.
maybe we'll have you back again.
Oh no.
Um, but I mean, you could sing something for us, maybe,
You're
because
so funny. I don't know about
apparently,
that
if you are ready to go to hell for
one.
it, you can sing
I'm
on a
ready
live
to go.
but no pressure. But anyway, to sort of wrap this up, I guess I'm
Mhm.
gonna be very blunt with you. You
Do
ready
it,
for this?
do it. I'm ready.
Why would you want to be with someone who you have to delude yourself into, viewing the world a very different way and give up your passion so that they would accept you? Let's leave religion aside. We're
Mhm.
talking about anything else. If you're
You're going off topic, Aladdin.
no, it's not because it's why you're still a Muslim, right? So
Okay.
let's just say you met a guy and he's
Yeah.
like, I like you, we could keep going steady as the they used to say.
Mhm. Like
um
the old days? Okay.
yeah, going steady, but you can't sing again, and you have to like change everything about how you dress and how you
Mhm.
eat, and sometimes you got to not eat because I said so. Like all of these things, you
Yeah.
wouldn't really, hopefully you wouldn't entertain that unless you're not feeling great about yourself maybe, or you think you can't do better than that guy, but I
Mm. It
highly
seems like
doubt
you
it.
don't know me that well. I'm just kidding. No, it's so funny. You sound like a lot of my friends,
Mhm.
that have been telling me, like, "Why are you doing this?"
Right.
Um,
Well, they gave me the Cliff Notes version of the story, so I came
Oh yeah,
ready.
you're talking to them. Okay, but so okay, so that's your question, right? Would I still be doing this if
Mhm.
or would I do that if that was being asked of me? Would I stay and give up all the things I love?
Yeah.
Um no, because I'm not an idiot. Because I know that I should love myself more. And if we want to get
I mean, you
personal,
you could be kind, you don't have to call yourself an idiot if that was the case, you
I
know?
like self-deprecation. What is it?
Right.
Deprecation? Alright.
But you wouldn't be an idiot in that situation. Like I said, there's sometimes other math going on in the background, like,
Yeah.
or
Well,
emotional feelings, like, what if I'm not good enough to get anybody else kind of thing, so maybe you
let me tell
settle
you
for that person.
something. Those are
Yeah.
thoughts. Those are thoughts that happen. And I'm gonna expose myself. I'm, in my late 20s, so I'm kind of like, oh God, am I running out of time? Like, is this the last chance I have to be with somebody?
TikTok, yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm,
the biological clock is ticking.
mhm,
And not to say that I don't even know if I want kids, but anyway,
mhm.
uh, yeah. So, I if we want to get personal, I'll get a little bit personal. I
Before you come back later for more
To get
because
more personal.
yeah,
I don't know what anyone's saying in the live chat. I'm kind of scared.
don't worry, that you're doing fine.
Okay. Um, but yeah, so I guess I've always had like issues with ugh, God, with like self-confidence, like I've always felt like I'm not good enough, and maybe that stems from my childhood psychology if we want to get into that. Um, but yeah, so I definitely have issues with that, and so I think at the first sign of any sort of attention from whoever I might be interested in, I'm like, oh, like here's my chance, I guess, and so then once I have them, I'm like, it's hard to let go because I'm like, what if no one will feel like that towards me again? But in this situation, I know that it's definitely not worth it to lose myself over somebody that's not even willing to take me as I am. But I'm working on it. It's hard to let go, but I'm slowly working on it.
And
Don't
you wanna hear the biggest plot twist of all?
Yeah.
That guy is analogous for God.
Mm,
Think about it. So,
mhm.
I mean,
No, it's true. Like, he won't accept me unless I'm a certain way.
yeah, yeah, and
Yeah.
and for God, it's even worse because it's like, and this is gonna get weird, but, like, it's as if that guy's also your father, like,
Yeah.
kind of like
Mhm,
he shaped
mhm.
you into who you are, and then he gets really pissy about who you are.
Yeah. Okay,
So
well, actually, now you're making assumptions about my father. I love
I
my
know
father. My father loves I'm just
not
kidding.
you,
No, but in general, yeah.
our father.
Our Father who art in heaven. Uh,
Exactly.
but,
Yeah.
yeah, so it's definitely, I can fix her. Sorry. Um, but yeah, so I'm working on, prioritizing myself and what I want, what I what I want, and like being myself and not changing for anyone, because I will be honest, I've had a history of changing for love interests, and I'm getting to the point where I'm old enough to, I mean, I know it's happening and I know it happens, and so I have to stop it, and I know that. But anyway, I don't want to get really personal about it. I'm a little nervous about that. I don't want
That's
anyone to
okay.
know who I am.
We just know that you love to sing and you're half Arab. Go
Mhm.
find him.
Oh
Or
no.
no, no. I'm joking, I'm joking. Nobody, please,
What is it
yeah,
called? You want me to do a zarguta, or what is it called?
Zarut no, please don't.
Break your stream
Maybe
again.
a trigger warning for people there. She's gonna
Put the volume down.
yeah,
Anyway,
yeah. Uh,
are there? I mean, I haven't been reading the chat. I don't know if people have questions or if.
no, that's fine. I've been handling the chat. Don't worry about it.
Cool.
It's been really fun
Yeah.
chatting with you, and I I mean, we'd love to have you back again some other
Mm,
time. In fact,
okay.
this has got me thinking I might even be changing the whole format of this show, where instead of having multiple people have a small amount of time, maybe I'll just do more live streams with one person at a time. We'll see.
Mhm, mhm.
But yeah, if you'd like to come back, keep in touch with the mods in the
I'd love to.
background,
Yeah,
and
that'd be
yeah,
great.
thank you for sharing with us today.
Thank you, Aladdin.
Take care and have a great rest of your
You
day.
too. Everybody take care.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye.
That was a lot of fun. We still have a bunch of callers waiting. Thank you for waiting back there. I'll get to you in a second. Just want to read a couple of chats. Is that okay, guys? Thank you. So about Ramadan coming up soon, one commenter Ananasi said, "Will be pretending to be on my period the entire month, I fear." Ashtar says, "But mom, you know I have long periods." So girls, do what you got to do to survive. I support it. If you guys don't know, I made a video about how to survive Ramadan. Look it up. I don't remember exactly what it's called, but 5 tips for surviving Ramadan or something like that. You'll find it on my channel. You should check it out. Mr. T says, y'all should watch the Muslim Lantern instead of encourage one another in misguidance. I haven't watched the Muslim Lantern. You guys want to go watch him, feel free, but it's nice to hang out with apostates sometimes. We don't want to keep hearing about what God said. Let's just actually listen to what people think. What else? Word Unboxed says, I feel like every ex-Muslim deals with the rewiring of their brain. When we think that our sins don't have God's forgiveness of some sort, it causes us to fall into hopelessness. I'm 30 and I left Islam at 17 when I got disowned. The commenter says, it took me so many years of retraining my brain to experience the world through the light that non-Muslims easily saw it in. I empathize with you and I relate to you, though my story is a bit different. I left later than you did. It's still that difficult experience of rewiring your brain, but I'm happy that you're succeeding at it, and all of us can do so as well. Together, we got this, guys. All right, so putting the next caller on, P for Potato. I hope you're ready because I'm adding you to the live stream now. Hey, Potato, how's it going? Can you hear me?
Hello, hello. Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. So please tell us a
Is
bit about
my
yourself and what you want to chat about.
all right? Okay, so I am P for Potato, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I am currently 24 years old, and I think I have been an ex-Muslim for probably 2 months now, officially, that is.
Mm-hmm.
And doubts about Islam. So, I guess if we're gonna talk about like the doubts and how I eventually ended up leaving, I guess we'd have to go back to the very beginning.
Okay. Your birth?
No, no, not that. Okay, that's too far.
Okay.
Uh, I get. Well, I mean, yeah, that kind of makes sense because like the upbringing is quite important.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm Egyptian, so I have been raised a Muslim for all my life, and my family was okay. I'm not going to say it's like the extreme real religious, but like more than average religious, I would say,
Mm-hmm.
but not on like the extreme side. So, but I would definitely consider myself that I grow up very religious. I would go to Quran lessons. My father and mother, they would always send me to the mosque to get lessons, read the Quran, learn about religion, etc., etc. And what am I mean, I wouldn't. So my upbringing was, I guess, I would call it a bit restricted, or I mean, not well, I don't know. Well, I guess I can get personal here. I mean, no one here knows who the hell I am. So I think I can get like, deep and personal in this.
Spill the family drama. Tell us.
Yeah, yeah. So, okay, so I guess I can begin with the fear of hell because the fear of hell has been instilled in me for like my entire life. Because like even from when I was a child, it was something that was ingrained in my brain.
Mm-hmm.
I remember that my mother, she would burn me with candles whenever I would misbehave. And then I would like scream and shout and I would tell her to stop, but then she wouldn't until I would promise that I wouldn't do that again. And whenever I would cry or say that it hurts or it burns me, like I'm hurting, she would say, okay, you think that hurts? Well, I mean, imagine how it would be like for hell. And I would be like, damn, she's right. I mean, imagine what it would be like for hell. And then I would never misbehave again. I would like, I remember I would wake up like, I pissed the bed multiple times just dreaming about hell. And then I would like get up, I would wash myself, and then I would just pray. Not even like the main five, just pray so that I would like, repent and be able to like, I want to make sure I don't go to that hell place, man. I really don't want to go there because I don't like candles. So imagine if I go to hell. Holy shit. And I think that really dictates how I kind of grew up because I was very disciplined. I wasn't like the like I know I wasn't that kind of guy who would like not really do what they're told. I would always do what I'm told. I wouldn't leave the house. I would always come back at curfew. I would do everything that my mother says, not really do anything outside of the box because I know what's gonna happen to me if I go outside of the box and I do something that I'm not supposed to, I guess.
Hmm.
And then I guess fast forward to teenager years, then the doubts started to come, but then I guess these doubts didn't really count because I guess I was knowledgeable about Islam and I would always go to like the mosque and I can, I read the Quran and I know like its explanations. So I would always use the circular reasoning and I would be like, okay, the Quran says so, so okay, it's true. And then that's just die out. Never really explored it much further than that. And even when I asked like sheikhs and other people, it's the same thing.
Hmm.
So it didn't really, it didn't really do anything. The doubts, they would come and go, but they never stayed. Then fast forward to 17 years, I was able to finally leave Egypt, and I traveled to Turkey. I'm in Turkey right now. I've been living here for like 6 years now, and I think it definitely started from there because I'm not with my family anymore, and my father died when I was 15, and I think just like the situation just kept going downhill from there, especially with my religion. But I was still a Muslim. I was still praying. I was still praying. I was still, doing what I'm supposed to do as a devoted Muslim. So I never really did anything, crazy. So I came to Turkey. I became kind of independent, I guess, and I was completely by myself. But I still didn't leave the religion. I was praying. I was doing everything that I was told to because I never really delved deep into it because I didn't feel the need to, because I guess at that time I still believed that it's the correct religion. And why should I like, why should I doubt that? Why should I question it? And I don't really know when it started, but I think it's like probably 2 years ago. Like the doubts just kept coming and in my mind, and they just wouldn't go away. I tried so many times. I don't want these thoughts in my head, man. I really do not want to think about these things. What do you mean I'm thinking about like, why are we here? Why is God doing that? Is God evil? Is he a hypocrite? Is he a narcissist? Like, why is he doing all of these things? What is that? What is all of this? What are these thoughts? That goddamn shaitan, man, I'll tell you what, like that bro is like, oh wow, he's one hell of a guy.
Hmm.
Uh,
I mean,
so
to
yeah.
recap, just because I don't want to gloss over it. You mentioned that what your mother used to do when you were younger. I'm sorry that you had to go through that. I mean, and
Oh yeah, that's fine.
I appreciate your openness in sharing it because you're not the only person who went through something like that, and there are people in the comments already who say that they can relate. Um, but you were saying at the time that made you into I guess a better behaved child in the sense that
Yeah.
you wouldn't break any rules because you're afraid of the consequences. Not that you were a better person, you were just better at sticking to the rules, kind of thing. And
Yeah.
it didn't really get you questioning God, right?
Oh no, never. Like why would I question that? Like there's no reason for me, and even like even if I thought about it, like the thought goes away immediately because my brain just goes to the punishment, and I don't
Mhm.
want that. So I
Right.
just move on.
And I just want to highlight that point because I mean, if being in an abusive situation or relationship with your family has got you to question God, there's nothing wrong with that. But I want to hear what it is because often these stories will be misconstrued by believers to say, so you left Islam because your mother used to abuse you. So see, you didn't really think about it. You just left for emotional reasons and so on and so forth. But I want to highlight how, if anything, it really kept you from stepping out of line in any way. It didn't get you questioning the religion, and then it was
Yeah, and
only
I
later
don't think it
when,
had anything to do with me leaving it.
yeah.
It's just there.
And if it did, I wouldn't hold that against you. It's just it's almost cheap ammunition for believers to say you were abused, therefore your apostasy doesn't count. Essentially, is what they mean by that. But um, yeah, I'm sorry that you went through that, and I'm glad that you're not in that situation anymore. A lot of us can relate, unfortunately. And yeah, and then you started having doubts that wouldn't go away, and you started thinking, maybe the shaitan is actually as powerful as you were told. And how did you
Yeah.
change from that, transition from that state to accepting that maybe it's not that you're wrong, it's maybe that Islam is wrong?
Okay, so ironically enough, for me, it started with one simple question. So, eternal hell, right? I deserve it. Or, I mean, the disbelievers deserve it, right?
Hmm.
So, I don't believe in a God. I mean, like at that time, I'm just like thinking out loud. So, okay, I don't believe in a God. I don't think, that Islam is the correct religion. So, basically, I'm going to be tortured for eternity. And I saw a few videos and explanations. So it's like, okay, someone asked, like, there's this guy, there's this doctor. Wait, what is he called? Like something Yaqub. Like he's like a cancer doctor or like a heart surgeon in Egypt. He's like very famous.
Hmm.
So like he's like Christian or non-religious or something. I don't remember exactly the name. So someone asked, so okay, so he's done like so many great things. He's saved thousands of children's lives. He made hospitals. He made his donations, and all of that. So is he going to go to heaven or go to hell because he doesn't believe in Islam? He's not a Muslim, and or he doesn't believe in God. And the answer for that, it was like from a random sheikh. I don't remember his name. He said, so like, okay, so all of the good that he's done, all of the things that he's done, he didn't do for God. He
Hmm.
did it for himself and other people. So, by definition, all of his good deeds don't count. So, he's gonna go to hell for eternity. And I just stood there and I'm like, what the fuck? Like, I mean, really? I mean, are we serious right now?
Hmm.
And apparently, he was very serious. I mean, like all the comments, they were like, oh, yeah, yes, yes, subhanallah, yes, mashallah. And everyone was agreeing. I was like, okay, but really?
This is like one of those examples that sound almost crazy till you actually look at the rules and you're like, you know what, they kind of have a point. Like, how a murderer is not worse than a kafir. A kafir is worse than a murderer and a serial, assaulter and so on and so forth. That example is used to incite shock into, like, the purpose is for Muslims to think a disbeliever is that bad. But a reasonable person might think, wait, is religion that unreasonable? That really this guy who has done charity his entire life and has arguably done more good than all the prayer in Egypt combined, God is going to judge him as going to hell? Well, what do you think of the Muslim opinion that we don't know what God will judge? Allahu A'lam. Did that
Yeah, they
sway
say that
you?
a lot, don't you?
Yeah. But
I
the
mean,
majority opinion that you came across was that he's a kafir, then, or he's not religious enough, then God's probably going to send him to
yeah.
hell. So then that gave you doubts?
Yeah, that was like the start of it. Like basically the eternal hell for people who like don't believe and are not Muslim. So apparently in Islam, I mean, so the people who believe in the one Almighty God or like the Abrahamic religions, I guess, those people are gonna go to heaven, like all of them. It doesn't really like, if there are a Muslim or a Christian or a Jewish, or like some people even claim that, okay, they might not be religious, but they believe in the God of like these religions, so they're gonna go to heaven as well. But every other people, those who like don't believe, those who think that he may or may not be real, or those who believe in multiple gods, like all of those are just going to hell straight up.
Mhm.
And it kept me thinking. I was like, okay, I need to like dig deeper into this. And And then I guess my journey started. And then I started looking deeper. I started reading the books, like in Bukhari, Sahih Muslim, Sahih Bukhari. And I started reading like the explanations of Ibn Kathir, Al-Qurtubi. So it's like it was. I would always I would have the Quran. I would have a video about a certain verse. I would have a reply of that verse from someone who is not Muslim, and then I would have like the PDF of the book of the explanation just open. I would have like all four of these open, and I'm just like just researching, reading all of that. That I just spent months doing that, and it was like I thought I knew my religion, man. Like I really thought I did, but apparently I didn't. Or I thought, I thought I did. But the thing, I started speaking to like sheikhs and people who are like supposed scholars to, because at that point I wasn't really, I was still a Muslim. I was still praying, and I only had doubts. So I was like, okay, I need to see someone who's like, who knows their shit. I need to talk to
Mhm.
someone. So there was this guy, I think he was like Muhammad Adil, or I don't know what his name is. He was like a scholar in the Azhar University. And I contacted him. We got on a call. We started talking. But then, like, okay, so his answers, okay, so he made an analogy for me. I remember this one specifically because we sat on this for like an hour. So I told him, okay, so God, like, it was on like the situation of are we okay, so are it was like predestination or do we have free will? I was like, okay, so I asked him that, and he was like, okay, so you have free will, but God knows what you're going to do because he's very knowledgeable of you because, he created you, he's very knowledgeable. But you also have free will, but he knows what you're going to do, just because he knows you, he created you, but you have free will though.
Mhm.
And I was like, okay, so that doesn't really make sense because how can we have free will, but he already knows everything that I'm going to do from like the moment I am born? And then we went on like that, like we kept talking a lot, and then we came to like the story of the Ghulam. So like I guess it was Musa, and he killed a kid because he was like gonna commit a murder or something in the future. So he killed him while he was a kid so that he wouldn't really commit that because he knew that he was going to commit that. But then that doesn't really like that refutes the argument of free will. But he was like, no, 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 that doesn't refute it. He knows, like, okay, he has free will, and his free will was going to like let him reach that point of being a murderer, and God knows that. So he just, he didn't let him do it.
Mhm.
So he ordered Musa to kill him. I was like, okay, how can we have free will, but like, God knows that. Like, how does that make sense? So he made an analogy for me. He told me like, okay, so imagine we're in university, right? And like the teacher tells you, okay, so the teacher knows the students very well, and he knows which student is gonna pass and which student is gonna fail.
They always give that
And
terrible, terrible teacher analogy. Yeah. Go ahead.
yeah, they always do that, huh?
Yeah, I've had the same exact conversation also with a sheikh from Egypt, also about the same topic of Al Khidr and the the story of Al Khidr and Al Ghulam. And you're telling me the same exact analogy that they gave me too, which is it's a teacher that knows the class very well. It's still not their fault that the kid failed. Even though they knew a
Oh my
kid would
God.
fail, they predicted the kid would fail because they're such a good teacher, a knowledgeable teacher who knows their students. And it's such a bad analogy. Feel free to tell me why you didn't like that analogy.
Yeah, so it's like, okay, so by the way, did we speak to like the same person, or was like the entire Azhar just relies on this one analogy?
It
Like
wasn't even Al Azhar, but it's the same mindset. It's the same sort of talking points that they have, and they've never had like a televised debate in Egypt where someone destroys that asinine point, and then they can say, "Wait, we
yeah.
have to find something else." So it keeps working in these little rooms where they have these conversations, or even on stage, because no one is able to challenge them. But yeah, tell
Yeah,
me what
they
you
think
found.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah, they think it makes sense. Like, they really think he makes sense because, like, at the end of it, he told me, like, "Hey, listen, this analogy really makes sense to me. I don't know why you're like not
yeah.
believe it. If you don't want to believe it, that's okay. That's fine with you. But that's it's a perfect analogy." I mean, he didn't say perfect, but he said like it's a very good analogy. So I told him like, okay, so that teacher, he's like a really knowledgeable teacher, and he's like a really good. He's knowledgeable, and it's not his fault that the students failed, right? I was like, okay. So there's quite a few there's quite a lot of things in this analogy. So first off, if we're going to assume the teacher is God, right?
Mhm.
So first off, the students and the teacher can interact with each other. They can hear the teacher, they can see him, and they can have contact with him. And even if the teacher doesn't come, he's like, okay, I can send an email to the teacher. I can call him. I can tell him, hey yo, what's the curriculum? What should I do? What am I supposed to do? Uh, that does not that's not God. First off, like that is okay. Second of all, the teacher didn't create every single student. The teacher didn't write every single piece of information and piece of action they will ever commit and have ever committed. I mean, that's okay. That also doesn't work. So, and like, thirdly, okay, so let's assume this analogy works, right? So, if we're going to apply it to the real world, so like we just entered the room, right? So we entered here and we see the room is empty. So like, where's the teacher? There's no teacher. We find a student coming in, and the student is, hey, yo, what's up? The teacher sent me. I was like, really? The teacher sent you? Okay. Like, who are you? I was like, hey, this teacher sent me. Here's the curriculum. You need to do all of that, or else you're gonna fail. And they were like, oh, really?
And
That's it?
in the analogy, you're not even a student at that school. You don't know it's a school. You just walked in, and someone's
Yeah,
saying
even
you're a
that.
student
Yeah,
here, and you're like, "What? I'm not a student here. I didn't sign up for this." And they're like, "No, you did. Before this moment, you consented to it, but then the teacher made you forget. But you signed up to be in this school. But obviously, it's not the same as you going to a class knowing the teacher is real and the class is real. That's not even
yeah.
close to the same analogy."
Yeah, so I kept trying to like tell him, okay, bro, this analogy isn't working, man. You can't there's quite a few problems here. Can you see this? And he was like, okay, let's do another analogy. I was like, okay, sure, give it to me, bro. A father and his children. I was
Oh
like, oh
my
god,
god. It's like we had the
you know,
same.
I
Yeah.
yeah. And a father, he knows his children. Like a father gave birth to them, he raised them, from the moment they were a child all the way up to like until they grow up. And let's assume that he gave money to his children. He knows that this his child. He's going to save that money, and he's going to buy something nice for his mother. And the other child, he's going to waste that money, and he's going to buy cigarettes and booze. And both of them do that. And he did not influence their decision. No, 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 no. He knew it because he's knowledgeable of his children. And I was like, should I repeat my last arguments, or can you still not see like the problem with this analogy as well?
He
I
wasn't
mean, at that
listening
point,
to you. Like when you're describing what is wrong with the analogy, your objections to the bad analogy, he wasn't actually listening and trying to amend the analogy to give you a better one. He's just like, let's just change the format, but it's still making the same point without
yeah,
even
he didn't.
yeah. It wasn't addressing any of your objections at all.
Yeah, and at that point, I was like, okay, you know what? Let's move on. Like, let's okay, forget analogies. Like, really, just forget about analogies. And I just moved on. I think we moved on like to another topic. I think after that, I think I talked to him about slavery, which is a spicy one.
Mhm.
But that we just kept going on circles. How it's like, okay, it's very regulated. It's very slave.
It's not like bad slavery. It's like good slavery. It's halal slavery.
Slaves had rights, bro. They have rights in Islam, okay? Like you don't know, you don't understand.
Organic slavery. It's not like commercialized, capitalized slavery. Yeah.
Yeah, we're listen, we're the good guys here, okay? Listen,
Islam
like
was the best at
those,
slavery. Believe
yeah,
me, folks, I know slavery. I am the best at slavery. This is what Muhammad said. Um, yeah. So wait, because I've had the same exact conversation with sheikhs before, and like we're not the only people who've had that conversation. Apparently, um, so I guess to summarize it, a lot of conversations with sheikhs where they don't really give you a straight answer. They're not actually engaging with what you're saying. How does that make you feel, and where did you go from there?
I mean, okay, so when I would like talk to them, I would feel okay. They really want to make me feel ignorant. You know,
Mm,
they want me to make like they want you to feel ignorant. So like okay, so there was this one time where okay, so I was telling him like some verses from the Quran, and he was telling me like okay, so this verse from like chapter something something. I was like I don't know. He was like you don't know. You don't know that verse. It's a very important verse, man. I was like I don't remember it. I mean, if you say it, I can remember. It was like oh wow. So it's like he wants you to feel less than him because like he knows the Quran and
mhm.
he memorized it. So for me to like they always use that. I
You
mean,
know,
okay, technically he
I want
didn't.
I want to attest to
Yeah,
that point because again, this is a video that I've been working on and it will be out soon. But I had a conversation with sheikhs, same deal. We also had similar, I heard similar talking points from them. In my case, he didn't say, "Do you know verse whatever from surat whatever?" He would start reciting the verse or the hadith or whatever, and I would sometimes continue it. Like I would finish it for him. Like he would pause, he would say it, and then pause, and then expecting me to say, please continue, Sheikh, tell me what I'm ignorant about. But when I did recite the verse to him, eventually he was like, oh, mashallah, it seems like you know your Quran. And it wasn't like, therefore, I'm going to take this guy more seriously than I'm taking P for potato. It's just this strategy didn't work. So let me move to something else. So, yes, there's
yeah,
that strategy of like trying to overwhelm you with or ask you questions that you don't know the answers to, as if you knowing the answer has anything to do with their point. Like me memorizing that verse had nothing to strengthen their point at all. It was just a mechanism for them to make me feel stupid in a way. Or maybe even like if I'm being charitable about it, maybe to keep me engaged so that I can, answer back, but it's still not really addressing my question.
yeah. I like it's always that, and there's always that one question of them telling you, okay, so you've done the research, okay, how long? How long have you done the research? And I realized like soon enough after a few times that that is just a trap question. It doesn't really matter your answer, like hey, 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years, 20 years. It doesn't really matter because I realized after like talking to them, and it's not just sheikhs, it's just all like I guess the extreme Muslims who like they would defend their religion no matter what. Like all of them, they 100% believe in the religion, obviously. So the fact that someone made research and like delved or digged into the religion and arrived to a conclusion that is different than them is incomprehensible to them. They will never believe that something like that can even happen. They cannot even begin to imagine it. So the only valid explanation for them is like, okay, so you digged like deep, you really made your research and you decided to leave it. No, you didn't do enough research. Like you can't. You just can't.
Yeah. And if you did and you arrived at a different answer than them, there must be something wrong. You either did it wrong, or you were lying, or you were misled, or it's just it's unfeasible to them that someone disagrees with them on what is essentially a philosophical argument. Because what it
Yeah.
boils down to is, think about it. Look at the stars, look at the sky, look at the moon, whatever. Didn't God create these?
أفلا تعقلون.
Yeah. Do you not think? Do you not ponder? Don't we need a God? The Kalam cosmological argument, if they even graduate to that, it's that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, or like the miracle of the language being so beautiful, and they say, could a human write this? It's all appealing to what other explanation is there? It's not really a process for determining the truth. So it is reasonable for an outsider to think, I agree or I disagree. Like there are ways to arrive at both. And I would argue it's more reasonable to think, I don't think any of this is true. But to them, that's not even an option, because kufr, as they were trained to think, is a result of arrogance or the devil or misinformation. It cannot be because someone's not convinced.
Yeah. They cannot comprehend that idea. And I think like the final straw with it was like, okay, so I mean, I guess that's my fault. There was someone on Reddit. I know. Okay, like just hear me out. There was this someone on Reddit that I was like, I guess he saw one of my comments or something, and he was like, "Hey, I mean, hey, listen, I'm very knowledgeable in Islam. You know, I can debate with you." I was like, "Okay, sure, why not?" And we hopped on a call. We started introducing each other, and then he asked me again how long I did my research. And at that point, I was like, "You know what, bye," and I just hung up. And he was like like they always begin with that question. And at that point, I think that was the last time I debated someone. And after that, I just started doing my own research. I was like, yeah, I'm done. I'm done debating and talking to people like that. It's really it's not beneficial anymore.
Mhm.
And then I just start digging deeper and deeper on my own, just doing my own research. And obviously, the deeper I went, the worse it gets, as we all know with Islam. And it got to a point where I started feeling kind of like disgust, I would say, from the things that I would see. Never really thought I would feel like that from the religion that I was raised to believe in, and the religion that I always thought that it was right. You know, I was doing all this, and the closer I would get to like, you know, okay, am I gonna leave? Am I really am I gonna stop believing in this? And the closer I would get, like the worse it would get for me, like mentally, because I would like come to the realization was like, okay, so technically speaking, my entire life and everything that I believed in was a fucking lie. So it's like, okay, how, what I do? So what am I doing here? What? So it's like, okay, what's up now? What happens now?
Mhm.
And it was very scary. It was very like I think I spent like 3 days not sleeping. I didn't sleep for 3 days. I just couldn't. And I think the worst time was I was talking to my mother, and you know we were talking normally, and she would be like, she would always ask, "Have I prayed? You know, did I pray Dhuhr? Did I pray Asr? You know?" And she would always like pray for me, and she would tell me, you know, just you know, just read the Quran. You know, God will help you. It's okay if you feel like down. You know, just remember to pray. Remember to do this. Remember to do that, and everything's gonna be fine. And I'm just like, yeah, yeah, and I'm just like nodding and agreeing, and I kind of wanted to cry. It was
Mhm.
like it was very unbearable because I mean I told her that I needed to go, and I hung up, and it was like, and afterwards I just sat and for like 1 hour just thinking, like I mean my brain was just overwhelmed. I was very sad. I was angry. I was very emotional. I was a lot of things at once, like everything everywhere all at once, basically.
Mhm.
And I didn't really understand. I still had so many questions, and none of them were answered because, you know, in Islam it's like, yeah, Allahu Alam. I was like, or like, hey, we don't question that. Or they would be like, hey, bro, like,
Mhm.
that's the shaitan. But now it's like, okay, so what now? What am I
Mhm.
supposed to do? So I started getting philosophical with it.
Mhm.
And then I started seeing videos about, you know, hey, why are we here? What is life? What is consciousness? What is the meaning of life? How to, you know, just all of like these kind of videos and stuff. And I'm not gonna say that it worked because it really didn't. I don't think
Mhm.
it even did until now. I mean, but yeah, I really don't know. But the thing that I know is, okay, so the doubts, like the doubts are over now. I don't have doubts anymore. I don't believe in this religion anymore. I don't think I will ever come back to it. I know too much now, basically,
Mhm.
to ever decide to go back to that. I don't know if I will adopt another religion. I really don't, but it's very tough to live without religion since it's basically was. I mean, like it's my entire. It was me. That was me. I mean, I don't know anything else.
Mhm.
My entire life was basically my religion, and now that I don't believe in that, it's like
Well,
never.
how many
I
months?
never really thought
How many months has it been?
since being an ex-Muslim officially, probably 2 months.
Right. Since I guess getting that all of that hitting you and having that response to it and being confused, 2 months or more, um,
Yeah,
well, in the grand scheme of things, you've been a Muslim or you've been contending with whether or not you've been a Muslim for the better part of 24 years, right? So
yeah,
2 months is not enough for you to sort everything out. And I know you know that, but I'm just reassuring you that it takes a bit longer than that. So you're not behind the schedule in any way, or it's not like you've been hopeless for another 4 years and you still can't find a way to, comprehend the world around you. It's gonna come
yeah,
to you, and you're kind of proactive about it too. Like you're one of the members of the Discord server, so you already found community and you're having discussions and you're thinking about it. Um, I hope
yeah,
you're joining the calls. I wasn't aware in the past few weeks, but yeah, I mean, you're doing something about it. Um, I hope it continues, going well because I imagine you don't feel the same way that you felt 2 months ago, right? Probably not
yeah. It's
the
definitely,
same.
yeah, definitely a bit different that way. Now I came to a few realizations. I guess it's like okay, I like the doubts are gone now.
Mhm,
I don't have any doubts. I like any question that would come up or any proof that they would that is like anyone would claim that they have that Islam is true or they would say that I'm wrong. I already know what the answer is or what my response would be to that.
mhm.
So yeah, I think that like
Wait,
the part of
your
me
response to be to what question?
like any response to like that doesn't make sense or like the religion is correct, you are wrong. So I would most for the most part I would have a response to that
But
when
I
before
mean,
I would really have.
yeah, but you don't even owe anyone these conversations.
I know it's not that I don't owe anyone. I know that I don't know anyone of that, but it's like I kind of like reached a point where I don't really see any of like the very big questions or major problems or major doubts in
Mhm.
Islam that I don't know about. I think I know all of them now. So it was it was like for me that was the point where I finally decided that I'm gonna leave this. And I know people probably most people don't do that, but I didn't. I stayed because I wanted to be wrong. I wanted my doubts to go away. I wanted to get reassured, but that didn't happen.
Yeah, you're not
And
the only one. You said most people don't do it that way. You'd be surprised. That's what I did. That's what a lot of people I've spoken with did, which is try to find ways to explain your doubts so that you can remain a Muslim. And that utterly fails because the more information you find, the more doubts you have.
yeah, it really does get worse though. Like the more you dig, the worse it gets, huh?
Yeah.
It really does.
Which
And
again, if that's by design, if because some Muslims will look at that and say, well, that's part of the test, right? Because Allah is testing how arrogant you are. Because the more information you ask for, some Muslims think the more arrogant you are because you think that you know all the answers, or you think that you would know more than Allah, or have a conclusion different to what Allah is telling you. So Allah is kind of punishing you by overwhelming you with all the answers that don't make sense. But obviously, that's just nonsense. The more you dig, the more
yeah,
questions you have, and because it's a story. Not Islam essentially is a story, and so are other religions, but it's not told by one person in one sitting. It's by at least one person, but probably other people have had their opinions and thoughts inserted into it, but over the span of
yeah,
many years. So there are plot holes, there are things that contradict each other, there are things that make no sense. So the more that you pay attention, the more that you find those things, and I guess you get that proof. I guess it's not even proof. The
mhm,
thing is, you don't need proof that Islam is false, you need proof that it is true. But you just you
Yeah.
skip that growing up, right? You assume that it is true and you work backwards from there. But
Yeah.
maybe you can find peace in knowing that there never has been and never will be proof that Islam is true, and that's all you need to know. You don't even have to worry about all the doubts.
Hmm. Yeah. There is one last thing I kind of like want to go over real quick because you said like when the doubt started on something. I just remembered something and it's like a core memory for me.
Mhm.
So when I was like I think probably what like 14 or 13 maybe, I remember this one incident in my neighborhood, and I mean I don't know. I think this is gonna get a little bit graphic, but I'll try to like spare a few details. So I was playing with my friends, or I mean I wouldn't play. We're just hanging out, and we hear like a very loud commotion, right? And we see like a group of like men coming from like a street, and there's like glass breaking. There's like a lot of like sound, like a lot of like loud sounds, like people shouting. So
Mhm.
we go and check it out, obviously, curiosity. And we see that these men, they are dragging someone behind them. So I looked at him. He was a guy. I mean, I think like mid 20s or something. Like he was, a young man. And they were dragging him. He was naked from his bottom half, and he had a shirt on. And he was like very covered in blood, and blood was like dripping all
Don't
over.
get into the details because
Yeah, sorry.
yeah.
Okay. So we went there and they started beating him, and I guess they were already beating him. And so I went there and so we started asking, like, "Hey, what's up, man? What is happening here? What is that?" I was like, "Yeah, that guy's gay." And I'm like, "Oh," I was like, "Oh, he's gay, right?" And at that time, obviously, I agree with them. I was like, "Yeah, yeah, he deserved that. Damn, yeah, no, he definitely deserved it. Being gay, oh, wow, he deserved this." But for me, like, I did that, I guess. I mean, even with the indoctrination and all of it, like deep down, I was like, okay, so did he really deserve all of that, man? Like, do we really need to go that extreme for someone like that? Like, really? Like, why does he deserve that? Where is it written in the Quran, or where is it, in the Hadith where this is like justified? And I kind of like, I asked someone there, like, I asked one of my friends, I was like, isn't this too much? Like, I mean, okay, yeah, sure, he's bad. I get it. Like,
Wait,
gay
wait,
is
wait.
bad. He is wrong.
I have a question before we.
Yeah.
I mean, when you think about where is it written in the Hadith or in the Quran, say it was explicitly written. What then? Like,
Huh.
put yourself in the mind of who you were at the time. Say it was written explicitly that way in the Quran or the Hadith. What now? What would you think?
At the time, I probably wouldn't say anything. Honestly, I'd probably feel like a bit icky about it, but I wouldn't say anything because, hey, listen, God said so. So, carry. I mean, who am I? Who am I to go against the will of God?
Right.
So I probably wouldn't really say anything.
I see. I mean, to answer your
Yeah.
question, where is it written? I know that there's precedent for throwing gay people off of roofs. There's precedent for, for stuff that has nothing to do with homosexuality, but chopping off limbs and the opposing, arm and a leg, and leave them. And Muhammad even participated in or witnessed stakes being inserted into people's faces and things of that nature. So
Yeah, I
there's a
saw
lot
that.
of brutal stuff in the Hadith at the very least, and in the Quran as well. So even if there's not a one-to-one link that says do this to this particular kind of person, there's enough in there that someone can improvise based on what they're already allowed to do. But either or is not really the question here. Is I guess that at the time as a believer you were thinking, did God allow this? Did God okay this? And if God did in explicit terms, then I guess I can't do anything about it. But the real question that obviously you're probably thinking about now is, is this fair? Is this humane? Is this good
Yeah.
in any way?
Yeah, at that time, I probably like convinced myself that okay, this is like they're the problem, not Islam, right? Like they
Mhm.
did that. They're the bad people. We're uh, Islam is the religion of peace, man. It's not like that. They have it all wrong. It's their fault. It's not Islam's fault. It's not the scripture. It's not the Quran. You know.
Mhm.
And yeah, after that, I just kept thinking about it. I was like, okay, so God made gay people, right? So everything is written. So this guy's gay. So he's getting punished for something that he is, or something that he's getting punished for something that it was decided for him. So God made him gay, punished him, killed him, and then he's gonna burn in hell for eternity. I was like, really? But then obviously again, at that time, I was like, yeah, no, 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 no. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. Just let those thoughts go away, and I just moved on.
And then now, I guess to skip forward, you
Yeah,
now you got to think of right and wrong, not through the question of where does it the hadith or the Quran mention it, but in other ways, right?
yeah. Now I need to make my own subjective morality, I guess.
Right. I mean, Muslims say that, but theirs is not really objective. Theirs is a guy spoke to a guy who spoke to a guy who allegedly spoke to God and said these things.
Yeah,
Which we got to remind ourselves, is not anywhere near the standard for objective morality, and that's a philosophical discussion that most people, including people who say the words objective morality, don't know how to have. But that's besides the point. Um,
yeah,
Well, now you don't really doubt, I guess, that Islam is not true anymore. You know that it is not true. You just don't know where
yeah.
to
I
go
know.
from here.
Well, I wouldn't say I don't know where I could go. Actually, yeah, I don't know where I could go from here. I guess I'm just leaving it at the chance and the forces of nature to
Mhm.
to see where I'm gonna end up, I guess, because I don't think I'm gonna stop really looking for answers, I would say.
For answers for what? What's the question?
Everything, I guess.
What do you mean? Like,
Okay, I mean, I think a main reason for that is like right now I'm kind of missing purpose, I would say.
right? So
Missing
the
the point because
question would
like
be, what's the point of my life, or what's the point of life in general, or what is the
both, like
question?
what's the point of life where كيف بدأ الخلق basically, like where did it begin? How,
But
like
that's a
why?
flawed question, right?
Yeah,
How
I
did
know.
it begin implies that there is a beginning that we know about, and if we're starting from a point of ignorance, we don't know if there's a beginning at all. Um, but I hear you. It's just overwhelming to think everything. I have to question everything. Start defining what these, or at least what the pertinent questions are from that everything.
Yeah.
And some of it is, what's the point of life? What's the point of my life? Um, let me ask it this way, or let me say this. Say a mosquito, for example. What's the point of a mosquito? Well, I don't know
Sucking my
what.
fucking blood, that's why I'm being annoying.
Yeah, there's that. But is that the point, or is that a byproduct of the mosquito existing and you existing in the habitat of the mosquito? It's just a thing that happens. So, from your perspective, it seems like that's the
Mm,
point. The point of a mosquito is to annoy you and to spread diseases.
yeah.
But from the perspective of a mosquito, the point is to breed, bite, and die. Like that's what they do.
Hmm.
From the point of the ecosystem or other, animals or insects, their food.
Yeah.
Mosquitoes are their food, which all
Yeah. Oh my
plays a
God.
role.
Speaking of ecosystem, by the way, okay, so I like
Mhm.
a few months ago, I had this spider in my room, and it was like a still summer at that time, and like this was he was like a chunky guy, like right, like a real big spider, right? And he
Mhm.
was like in the corner of the room. I couldn't really reach him. I wanted to kill him, but I was like, okay, I'll get him later, And there was like, I remember before the spider came, there was always like mosquitoes in my room. They were always buzzing. But then for a few days, the mosquitoes stopped buzzing in my ear. There were no mosquitoes anymore. So I went there, and I came really close, and I looked at him, and there was like just like 7 different mosquitoes, just like in webs. And like the dude, like bro, like that spider, like he's one hell of a hunter, not gonna lie. And I was like, damn, he's doing my job now. Like I would always like try to like like just kill them, or like just like slap them out of that. And I would always fail. I was like, okay, so this guy's like like he's the real shit. Like they come to him, not me. Like how did he even get there? So I was like, wow, this is
So
amazing. Like the
you see
cycle of
how
life.
the spider might not seem like it has a purpose until you find a purpose that pertains to you, which is that it removes the insects that bother you. But
Yeah,
objectively, is that the purpose of the spider? No, I don't think the spider has a purpose. As far as we know, none of this has a purpose that we can tell. You can
I
drive your
called him
truck
Sobhe, by the
dirty.
way.
Subhay, okay. Subhay the spider.
Yeah.
Um, so, yeah, you know how the US has Spider Man, Egypt has Subhay. Uh,
Yes. We love Sobhe. He's
right.
amazing. The
So
amazing
yeah,
Sobhe.
as I was saying, Subhi's purpose is what Subhi thinks its purpose is, or what you think Subhi's purpose is. So essentially, the answer to the question, "What is my purpose?" is find one, and find one that you like, or maybe you find one assigned for you. If you live in an environment where you can't really choose what you do or how you spend your time, then a purpose is assigned for you. Or say you have a kid, then your purpose is to take care of that kid. The purpose doesn't have to be one answer. It's something that changes depending on the situation. But we're flawed in the way that we grew up thinking that there is an answer. I just don't know it. And because the answer used to be Islam, or it's a test or whatever it may be, it's something related to that. Now there's nothing. You think that question is not being answered, but you don't have to answer it in the same way. It's not going to be one thing that dictates the purpose of your life from start to finish. It is whatever you can make of it. So stop chasing that question because you'll never find an answer. What is our purpose as a species? I don't think there is one.
Really?
No. Like to say that there is a purpose for humanity is such an egocentric view, instead of thinking we're just the chimps that got lucky and got smart. Well, I mean, I don't know if lucky is the right word, but we're the ones that developed a consciousness and communication to this extent so that we can now have this conversation over the internet. But had our, ancestors not evolved into humans, we could have just been throwing poop at each other in the jungle still. Maybe
Hmm.
using some primitive tools, but not really going beyond that. We just happen to be the branch that went this far. Is that for a reason? I don't know, but I'm not going to waste my life thinking about an answer to that when there is no answer that we can ever discern, unless something changes, unless there is a designer and it chose to reveal itself. But what are the chances? It hasn't revealed itself in all of these years. Why is it going to do it in your lifetime? So focus on another question.
Hmm. I guess it really is kind of tough now, where basically my purpose and my entire life was predetermined and it was decided, and now I'm like, damn, I need to do this by myself now. I need to decide my own life. I need to do my own shit. Like, wow, that's
Mhm.
because like I never really hey, like, listen, that's not what they teach us in the academia, okay? Like,
Mhm.
they don't teach you this shit. So it's like deciding my own purpose or deciding my own, life now after all my life. Just, I knew my purpose was, I need to, populate the earth, make God's children, and, be a good human, die and go to heaven, basically. That was my entire purpose here. And my entire purpose also was, I worship God. So now that I don't believe in like the God of Islam, so like, okay, am I gonna worship another God now? Am I gonna worship a God? Am I gonna worship a couple of God? Do I even need to worship anyone? So it's like I'm
Again,
kind of still in that.
you don't
Yeah.
don't start the investigation with answering the questions that were already answered in the previous religion. You start by asking the questions from scratch. You don't start by asking, then who created us, because that's starting from the religion's launching point. You start by thinking, were humans created? Was this designed? If you care to think about that philosophical, conundrum. But yeah, so don't start with the past framework of who do I worship now? Who said that there are gods that need any worship? And even if there are a designer or multiple designers, Who said anything about them needing worship or you needing worship? All of that is just stuff you learn from the past religion. So yeah, don't waste
Yeah,
your time, because if you were a god, you wouldn't care about a believer's worship. Like none of this really actually makes sense. It's just a story that we were told.
yeah. By the way, do you know that I still enter the bathroom with my left leg and I would say أعوذ بك من الخبث والخبائث. I still do that, by the way.
It's hard to let go of these rituals sometimes. It's almost muscle memory. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like I do it. I'm like, why am I doing this?
Mhm.
So it's like, I mean, like you said, yeah, it's only been 2 months basically, and I'm not gonna lie, man, it fucking sucks.
But it
But
gets better.
yeah,
I mean, at
oh,
least
hopefully,
there's a sort of linearity to it. Like you're not stuck in a circle anymore. You're not going around asking the same questions and getting the same answers and being unsatisfied. Now you have a different path to take. At least it's maybe it's scary. You don't know what's on the other side, if there's anything on the other side. But at least it's not predictable and boring and driving you nuts.
yeah, yeah. That's the main thing, though. I mean, yeah, maybe like now I guess I'm not in a good place, or I'm very fucked up in the head right now, but hopefully in the future, it's gonna get better and it's going to get easier, I say.
It
Hopefully.
will. Like most of your life, you are conditioned to think and behave in a certain way, including that incident that you witnessed violence and you didn't really react to it in an appropriate way, but you were reacting in an appropriate way given your surroundings. That's just how you were conditioned to react and to behave. So now you need as much time, not as much time even, you need a considerable amount of time conditioning yourself in an environment that doesn't behave or think that way. You're not going to just undo it overnight or in a couple of months. You still need that positive reinforcement. So surround yourself either physically or virtually by people who are, not like what you used to be.
Yeah, physically isn't an option for me right now. Like at all.
But that too can change.
Like,
I mean, Turkey
yeah,
is not all, Muslims. There are ex-Muslims there too. So I hope you find some.
yeah, I know. But currently, I don't think I'm gonna be able to move anytime soon. And I live with one roommate that is an Azhar graduate.
Mhm.
And hey, let's just
Well,
say he's quite the character,
well, you still
you
have the
know?
rest of your life, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
probably, maybe. Hopefully, I have the rest of my life.
Mhm. I mean, no matter how short or long your life is, that answer still holds true. Like the rest of your life could be next month,
Yeah,
could be 5 years from now, could be hopefully a long
yeah.
time.
Oh my God. You know that thing where like, okay, so you're like jumping off a plane and your parachute fails. And it's
Mhm.
like, hey, it's okay because you have the rest of your life to figure it out. You know
Right?
that one?
Is that what it feels like right now?
Uh, eh,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, I hope that again through conversations like these and just time, things do get better. I'm sure they will. Just give it the time that it deserves, and try not to rush yourself. And yeah, I
Yeah,
appreciate your openness and then sharing this with everyone listening today.
same, same. Thank you.
Of course. And
Yeah.
I will see you around the server. Take care.
All right. Goodbye, bro.
Bye bye. Thank you, P for Potato, for sharing with us. I'm going to read some comments and then I'll get to the last two callers. Let's see. Rami, the usual. If you left Islam, why are you still talking about it? Blah, blah, blah. Because it still affects a lot of people's lives, even if they left Islam. It's not really a choice for them how much their lives are affected. To a large extent, it's not. So it's an outlet for them. It's a chance for you maybe to listen to all the stories of people who don't think like you. Increased visibility for people like us. So many reasons. So there are reasons to have live streams like these. Lissa, thank you so much for the super chat. So generous of you. Says mahalo for supporting these people in their journeys, finding themselves. I'm glad they have someone else they can they can help them through this. As long as they are safe, that is the main thing I have to consider for them. This is their safe space. I guess that answers Rami. Convenient. Thank you. And Lean, thank you as well for the super chat. Not much, but I just want to say thanks, Aladdin. I appreciate it. Now to answer some more adversarial questions or comments, Izzy says he became ex-Muslim and didn't know the difference between oncologist and cardiologist. LMAO, how he chose such a big decision. If we're talking about the previous caller and Magdi Yaqub, I know that in Egypt there's hospitals. Again, the caller's first language is not English; it's Arabic, and they call it like Mustashfa al-Qalb, the hospital of the heart, is what they call it. So maybe they're translating to cardiologist, but I know that there's also a charity there for like cancer. So I don't know if this guy's an oncologist or a cardiologist, but there are hospitals for both. So it's not that big of a deal that someone mixed them up. Obviously, it doesn't mean that the person isn't really truly an ex-Muslim. Like you heard their story. What else? Yeah, Ethiopian Soldier was saying if there's a correlation of disbelievers after abuse, then we should recognize it and talk about it. Sweeping it under the rug doesn't help anyone. I can offer at least one explanation for why you hear abuse stories from people who have left the religion, not people who stayed. Well, because people who stayed don't tend to talk about abuse in the community for many reasons, not all of them necessarily religious, but cultural reasons as well. And also, you don't want to kind of badmouth your family that way if the trauma has to do with family, because you're supposed to not even say oof to your parents. That's what Islam says. You can't object to their mistreatment of you. So obviously, you're not going to hear stories about people being mistreated by their parents as often. There's also that people who have a lot to lose, like say they have a healthy relationship with their family, they have more to lose than someone who has an unhealthy relationship with their family when it comes to coming out as an apostate. So it's easier for someone who already recognizes that there's a lot wrong with this dynamic to say, by the way, also, I'm not a believer, than someone who has a lot invested and knows that their family might disown them or, be distressed about it or something or the other. They have a lot more to lose, so they're less likely to question and or leave. So I hope that answers that. These are just some of the reasons why there's a correlation. This was I never seriously said that you need to pay me to be on the stream, but thank you for the super chat nonetheless, Lily. And she says, looking forward to coming back another time. Thank you, everyone. All right, so taking the next caller, I believe in the order it will be Aurelia the Rebellious. I hope you're ready because I'm adding you to the live stream now. Hi, Aurelia. Can you hear me? You are currently muted.
Not anymore. And yes, I can hear you.
That was quick. How's it going?
I'm doing well. How about you?
I'm good. Thanks for waiting for your turn. So tell me a bit about yourself and what got you doubting Islam.
Okay. So my background is actually pretty interesting. Honestly, my religious history is kind of convoluted. But
I've heard that before, so go for it.
So I was raised Baptist, actually. And not only am I raised Baptist, but I'm a preacher's kid. So my father's a Baptist pastor. And so that's how it was until I was 18. From the time I was about 15 is when I started having some issues with the Trinity and other theological problems with Christianity itself. And so I was looking for an alternative. I'm sure you see where this is going.
Mm-hmm.
Fast forward to me being 18 and taking the Shahada without fully knowing that what I was getting into.
How did you even think that, to explore Islam at that point?
Okay. 2 words, The Message. I don't know if you've heard of this movie. Probably
I have heard of it. I haven't watched it, but I've heard of it. Yeah.
I hope you don't mind me being a little crass, but it's what I would describe as a Muslim apologist's wet dream. It's basically take all of the common apologetic arguments about Muhammad you can think of, put them into one 3-hour movie, and that's what it is.
Damn, I got to do a review of that on the channel then, The Message.
Okay. I would love to see that, actually.
Right.
But I was actually watching it for a class that I was taking at the time because I was starting college. So a class called Islam counted for multiple gen eds, so I just went with it. and I was
What was the
curious.
class called, or like what was the topic of the class?
Intro to Islam.
Intro to Islam.
Yeah.
Did the person instruct? Did the instructor say that like was the instructor a Muslim? I'm assuming
No.
yes. No.
No.
And so did they give a disclaimer that this movie is by it's by apologists, it's not really a factual historical retelling of the man's life, or was it just like
No,
is
he
a source of
presented it
information?
as a factual retelling of his life, even
Oh,
though
there we
what
go.
I know now is that a lot of what was said in it just was not true.
Right. So
For example, of course,
go
they
ahead.
played up he didn't start wars and he made all these rules that his followers had to follow when it came to warfare. And now I'm just like, ugh, give me a freaking break.
Mhm.
And
Well,
of
that
course,
makes me a little angry at the instructor for kind of being an unwitting agent, I suppose, in this chain of narration, where they introduced it to
chain of
you.
narration, that's funny.
Yeah.
Pun intended.
Yeah, pun intended. Because you trusted that instructor as a source of information, right? And
Of
by
course I
extension,
did. Why?
yeah,
Like, I had no reason not to.
right. And you were 18 at the time.
Yeah, and like I said, I had no reason not to trust him, number
Mhm.
one. And number two, I didn't know that much about Islam in general.
Mhm. Okay.
At least no more than what I would consider common knowledge.
Right. So you watched that movie, and it was a lot of, I guess, apologetics or things that paint Muhammad in a positive light, and that made you think, what if they're onto something, or like how did that?
Basically,
Yeah. Okay.
it did make me think, oh man, this guy really is a prophet.
Hmm.
And then that kind of got me into the headspace of, oh man, now I'm stuck between two religions. What do I do?
Hmm.
And so part of the reason why I ended up taking the plunge was to essentially get rid of some of that tension.
Okay.
Yeah. One of my favorite authors is Victor Hugo. And in Les Miserables, he describes this phenomenon quite well in regards to one character named Marius, which is that only a twilight soul is content with living with such uncertainty.
Okay.
So
What was the
I
uncertainty?
thought that
Like,
that described my mindset at the time perfectly when I read that.
and the uncertainty was, is Islam true or not?
It was the uncertainty of being stuck in the middle,
Middle
of
of what?
being in a sort of religious limbo between Islam and Christianity.
So the uncertainty was, I don't have a religion that explains the world. I need one right now.
Basically.
Right. Okay. And Islam was like the closest thing, and you came across it because of that movie, The Message. And then how did that go from you watching the movie to then you taking the Shahada? What happened in between?
Basically, it was just proceeding with the class, standard apologetics about Khadija and Aisha and how they were strong, powerful women and how Islam was so progressive for its time. And Muhammad was definitely an abolitionist and not someone who owned slaves of his own, let alone slept with them. You know how it goes, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm. And
And
so you saw all this stuff and you thought, wow, this seems like a great guy.
yeah,
And what made you think not just was this a great guy in history, but this was a prophet?
well, part of that had to do with me growing up as a Christian, like I said, me being a pastor's daughter, very familiar with the Bible sort of by nature. That comes with the territory, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I noticed a lot of the overlaps without looking too closely at them, I'll point out. And so that led me to believe, I think he genuinely did get some kind of revelation.
So you're saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, is it fair to say that you are primed to expect a Jesus-like figure or some kind of, prophet figure? And when you saw that description, you thought, wait, Muhammad kind of is a prophet figure, therefore he must be onto something?
I would say was, not anymore, and we'll get to that later.
Mhm.
Actually, we might get into that now. You remember how you saw on the ex-Mormon subreddit a comparison between Joseph Smith and Muhammad, and then you asked if you could use it?
Right.
I'm actually the one who compiled it.
No way. What a
Yes
small
way.
world.
I'm
Yeah.
dead serious. I'm the one who put it together. On a lark, I basically just went, wow, Joseph Smith, he had a lot in common with the guy who ruined my life.
Right.
And then I sat down and made a list.
And that's funny because we spoke, I guess, months ago, where it's just a comment where I asked if I can use that list, and you said yes, and now you're here.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your help for making that list. That essentially, I mean, I'm sure we can find a lot of other cults that weren't, and maybe I'm giving this away, but like other cults that weren't as successful. And if we go through the life of the cult leader, it will be very similar to Muhammad and Joseph Smith.
You're right. But point is,
Mhm.
I've done a deep dive into Mormonism since then, really
Mhm.
as sort of a proxy for Islam to help me deal with some of the traumatic experiences that I had as a Muslim.
Mhm.
And I definitely had that sort of inbuilt resistance when it came to that. And a lot of it was because I was viewing Joseph Smith through the lens of Muhammad.
Mhm.
So I would say that I was, at 18, susceptible to looking for a prophetic figure. But then because I had that experience and then got burned by it, I then wasn't moving forward.
Right. So, I mean, I would say not just because of having a bad experience with it, you can deconstruct the whole concept itself of God speaking to a man and so on. But I guess what you're saying is you're not susceptible to it anymore, at least.
At least I don't think I am.
Yeah. Just be on the lookout. If a guy with long flowy hair or otherwise, starts saying that he spoke to God, don't
He's
listen to
probably
that guy.
lying.
Yeah. Not probably. He's as far as we know, it's not necessarily, and I guess that's a good point to bring up. It's not an accusation that the person who's spreading the message is lying, but they're wrong. It's not based on truth. They may be actually delusional and they think that they have a point. It's not necessarily that they're lying intentionally. They could also be lying though.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
mean, I guess that is a question that I could ask about both Muhammad and Joseph Smith as well. How much of it was for personal gain and how much of it was mental illness?
We might never know.
We
I mean,
probably won't.
yeah. And some people find it fun to investigate these things, but I wouldn't base your peace of mind on what you find out about these things, because whether it was fully delusion or fully self-serving, deviance, it doesn't change the outcome that it's not true, right? So,
Right.
yeah.
Now, part of the reason why I started to doubt Islam had to do with that trauma that I mentioned earlier.
Mhm.
And it started rather early on into it, actually, when I was still 18.
Okay.
Which 18-year-old, relatively attractive according to some people, not necessarily me.
I hope that you don't still feel that way about yourself, but anyway, we could talk about that later. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I got sexually harassed at a mosque.
Wow, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, it was a guy who was at least 3 times my age, probably 4, old enough to be my grandfather for sure.
Mhm.
A cope laugh, I promise.
Mhm.
I still can't believe this happened. He basically approached me after a lesson at the mosque, and he started hitting on me and asking if I were married, and I was like, of course I'm not married, I'm 18. So of course that made me extremely uncomfortable, and that kind of set the tone for other experiences that I had as a woman at a mosque, always feeling like I wasn't welcome or getting weird looks just for being there.
Mhm. And how did you? Well, again, I'm sorry that that has happened, and I can imagine how unsettling and terrifying that must feel as an outsider to that space and as an 18-year-old. Um, and how did it? Like, did you talk to anyone about it? Did anything happen after that?
Oh, I told the imam about it.
And then what happened to that person?
Never saw him again.
Right. But he never showed up at the mosque again. But yeah, no legal repercussions, I assume, right?
No, not that I'm aware of. And I'm actually looking at the chat right now and kind of chuckling a little bit. A white woman in a mosque is like a gazelle in a lion's den. Can confirm, Sarah. Yeah, that was definitely my experience.
What did okay, so at least they got rid of him, so that's good, I suppose. But what did they say to you, or what did the imam say to you?
He basically said, well, I promise you that he doesn't go to our congregation, which, to be fair, appeared to be true. And he was like, I'm really sorry that happened to you, etc. And then I was also close with a political science professor who happened to be a Turkish Muslim at the time. He was kind of my mentor during this time. I told him about it. He filed a report. Nothing ever came of it.
Right. So what was the man? Sorry, last question I'm going to ask about this because I'm confused. He was not part of the congregation. Like, he doesn't go to the mosque often?
He was part of a different mosque. He was visiting.
What was he visiting to do? To give a lesson?
I think so, yeah.
So, like, was he the person who was giving a lesson at the mosque and then approached you after the lesson, or how?
Basically, yeah. And of course, I was, and still am, extremely creeped out by that.
Right. I mean, it seems almost dismissive, like, oh, he doesn't even go here, but they brought him here. So that is bizarre. I hope that something came of that report, but I'm sorry that has happened to you. And I hope you feel supported and encouraged to stand up to that person if you need to.
Well, I did get the opportunity to stand up to someone else later on. And that is that at a different mosque, the regular Imam was going on Umrah, and the replacement that he got, holy crap, where do I start with this man? I guess I'll just start with the khutbah and stuff that he said there that really unnerved me. So remember how I said I was a college student at the time?
Mm-hmm.
Well, he said that people would go to hell because of student loans, which of course set me off. I mean, I didn't have any, and we'll get to that later. But because I promised that fact is relevant for why I started doubting Islam. But point is, that made me really upset because I basically thought, but isn't that just putting an unnecessary barrier when it comes to people's education?
Right. I mean, I can explain that Islamically. It's because
I know.
Loans
I know
are
the
haram,
explanation
right?
for it.
Yeah. No, I'm saying for the audience because they might be confused. Like, what? That's so random.
Okay.
Like loans are not allowed. Paying interest, I suppose. Any loans where you have to pay interest or interest itself is not allowed. So, and allegedly that's so that people don't take advantage of the poor and don't have a predatory situation where you're drowning in debt and interest. But then we live in a world that is built on credit these days. I don't know if Muhammad didn't see it coming or Allah didn't see it coming, but today, in a lot of places in the world, you cannot survive. Even in the Muslim world, they just call it something else, but you cannot survive without loans and interest.
So much for the all-knowing, right?
Yeah, he did not forecast that one. Like, I guess economics is not his strong suit.
Well,
but
clearly it's not a strong suit if he can't even add fractions correctly, as shown by some of the inheritance verses. But I digress.
Right, that's a topic for another day. But yeah, so for people who don't understand, student loans it's a loan, you have to pay interest, so you're doing something God didn't allow. So technically speaking, there are a lot of Muslims who just cope with the fact that Islam is outdated, and they say, well, if you got to do it, you got to do it. Allah would understand. Or they go to an Islamic bank, which essentially does the same thing, just in different terms, sort of thing. But there are people who just stick to the word and say, well, no, if you do it, that's haram, you're going to hell. I can't even call them crazy. I think it's everyone is supposed to adhere to that belief. They're just more honest about it and more blunt about it, I guess. But it is distressing for someone hearing that.
Yeah, so that was the first thing with this guy. Second thing was that night, he gave a talk called Why We're Losing Our Faith. And at this point was when I kind of started to realize that I'd been sold on a lie. I hadn't fully woken up to that yet, but I was starting to realize it.
Mhm.
And so, of course, they asked me to go to that, because why wouldn't they with that title? And it was about corn.
Mhm.
I assume you know what I mean. But yeah, it was about that.
Mhm.
And he blamed the fact that people were leaving Islam on that. And there were children present
Mhm.
because people weren't warned about the topic. So yes, he gave a whole talk about that was very explicit in front of children.
Right.
So there was also that. And then he said some really homophobic things. And at one point, he says that one of the reasons that corn is bad is that it encourages reversal of gender norms and it encourages women to be in leadership. First of all, I have no idea where he got that, but that's beside the point. Second of all, that was when I was like, oh, no, you didn't.
I mean, maybe this says a lot about his favorite kind of corn. Maybe he likes to watch the stuff where the woman is leading the way. Maybe there are some change in the chains and belts involved. I don't know. I'm just guessing here, but
that's probably true.
that's funny. I've
anyway.
never heard that before. That corn makes women want to be in leadership positions. Interesting. Okay, sorry to make jokes. It's just it's unbelievable. Please go ahead.
Oh my gosh, the comment section's hilarious. Anyway, so I was just like, oh no, you didn't. So I stood up and I called him on it.
Mm-hmm. In the mosque. Okay.
In the mosque.
You go, girl. I hope he wasn't too into that. But yeah, so how what did you say? How did he respond?
I don't remember exactly what I said, but it was something like, how dare you?
Mm-hmm.
And also, no, that's not true at all. And even if it were, then how would that be a problem? That's basically what I said. Yeah, I got told off by several of the women who were there afterwards.
Right.
But I was just like, I don't care. He said something stupid. I called him on it.
Mm-hmm.
They gave me a book afterwards called The Ideal Muslima. I don't know if you've heard of it.
The Ideal Muslima? No,
Yes.
But please tell us more.
Basically take every extremely sexist Islam QA article you can think of and put it into one book.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it is.
So what is the Ideal Muslima?
Like I said, it's basically just if you compile all of the most misogynistic Islam QA articles you can find into one book.
I mean, give us an
the Ideal
example.
Muslima.
Is one of them not speaking up when men are around, I guess?
Probably. I don't remember. I remember the one that really incensed me as I was reading was that the Ideal Muslima does not choose work that conflicts with her feminine nature.
Right.
I
Like
think
what?
that says it all.
Okay.
And so
maybe like the one thing I could think of is don't be a diver that works with sharks when it's that time of the month. But other than that, I can't think of something that women can't do because of their feminine nature.
I know, which is why I was so incensed by it.
Right.
But of course it was all, oh, if you let women work alongside men, it'll ruin them, and yada, 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 and women need to stay at home, all that kind of BS.
Right.
And, of course, I was very mad, once again. And so I basically told off the person who gave it to me in the middle of the night, which, to be fair, I probably shouldn't have done that. I probably should have waited till the next morning. But that just goes to show how mad I was. And then I actually gave the book to the Islamic studies professor who kind of got me into this mess in the first place. And I said, here it is, good luck.
What did did you talk to that professor about other parts of your journey there, or were you just like, look at where it got me?
Basically, just look at where it got me.
Hmm.
So this was right before COVID, and that was basically when things kind of paused for a little while, died down. But then
Right.
when I got back, things went back in full force. And there was one moment when I was taking a class with the same professor called Women, Gender, and Islam, where I really had one of my first like wake up moments. And that was, we were having a whole class about verse 434. That was the entire topic of the day was verse 434.
Dang,
And
what university do you go? Don't answer that, but I'm just curious. Like, where do you go to school where you have classes about Islam? I haven't encountered that in my life, I suppose. That's interesting. Well, yeah, please carry on.
so I started reciting one of the apologetic arguments that I had heard and kind of somewhat internalized for basically just coping, even though I still very much thought this isn't right.
Hmm.
Where I started talking about that. Um, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm about to say this out loud. I can't believe I said this then. But I started talking about the oh, it's not what it looks like because of the toothstick rule, that kind of thing. And then as soon as I said that, I was like, what the hell did I just say? And why the hell did I just say that?
Right. I'll explain that for the audience. So, verse 434 talks about how a men are dominant over women, or sometimes translated as caretakers of women, which is still infantilizing, and because of certain qualities that God has given men over women. And if you fear your wife's disobedience, if you just fear her disobedience, you can beat her. I mean, there's more steps to it, but it ends with you can beat her. And then there are apologetic explanations that aren't in the Quran that are about the specifics of how you don't hit the face, you don't leave a mark, maybe use a like a toothbrush like miswak, what they used to use at the time. And it's just coping, I suppose, to make it look a little bit better. But if you're still allowed to beat your wife just in particular ways, that doesn't
I
mean it's
know.
okay. Just means like when you think about beat without leaving a mark, that just means you can hide it better, not on the face. That means you can keep doing it without anyone finding out. It's just messed up stuff. But yeah, you were saying the apologetic point, which again, understandably, you were very young and impressionable,
And I
but you
was still
believe,
Muslim at the time.
and you're a Muslim, yeah. And you told them, and how did the class react, or how did the professor react when you said that?
The professor basically said, well, yeah, that is a point that is often made. Class didn't really react. I was embarrassed. And I still am embarrassed about that, honestly.
That's okay. We live and we learn.
Because I'm still like, why the fuck did I say that? Why the hell did I think it was okay to say that?
Mm-hmm. Why do you think you said that?
I said that because it was what I was taught at the time. And to a certain extent, because I was still in the phase of I'm trying to believe at this point.
So if you were to say, yes, the verse allows a man to beat his wife, could you still believe that it's a verse from God?
No. And what I would have said then was basically, that's what was allowed at the time. It's not like that anymore. Now it's not allowed at all. That's what I would have said.
Right. Even though obviously the text hasn't changed, it's just that hopefully you think of the Muslims that you met as people who aren't beating their wives, and you hope that that's not how it is anymore.
Of course. Of course. And I would still hope that that's not how it is. And I mean, let's be honest, that for the vast majority of Muslims, it's not like that, right?
I wouldn't say vast majority, but for a lot of Muslims, it is not like that. Yes. but it is something that enables the abusers to do their thing.
Yeah. So that was a big wake up moment for me. And by the time that class was over, I had already stopped praying full time. I was not wearing the hijab full time, and I had been before. And I was straight up skipping Fajr to watch Game of Thrones.
Wait, you were staying up late or waking up early?
Staying up all night, watching Game of Thrones, binge watching Game of Thrones, and not giving a damn when it was time for Fajr.
Right. Which is before or like around the break of dawn, I guess.
Yeah.
At the break of dawn. And okay. And then how did you progress from there? Did you still think of yourself as a bad Muslim, like a Muslim who's not praying right now, or did it change to I don't believe this?
That's kind of how I knew I was on my way out, or at least recognize in hindsight that it was an exit phase.
Right. And how did it progress from there?
Well, while all of this was going down, I was dealing with the pressure to get married. And
Wait, how old are you at the time?
21.
So you had been Muslim for 3 years at that point.
Yes.
And you were getting pressure from who to get married?
No one in particular. It's just that I had certain desires. And of course, I'd been told that the only way to satisfy them is through marriage, right? So
Right.
that's why and even having heard from scholars that, well, if that's the case for you, then it's obligatory to get married. That's why I felt pressure to get married.
Right. So because you couldn't relieve your, let's say, needs in another way, you were prescribed marriage
Correct.
by Islam and the followers, I suppose, that you consulted about that. Okay, so you felt the pressure. Basically, you weren't necessarily eager to get married. You were just down bad. But
I
that was the
very
only
much
way
didn't want to.
Right. Okay.
Especially because I also happen to be tocophobic, meaning I have a pregnancy phobia, and I certainly did at the time. I've never wanted children, so I wasn't down with the whole natalist side of Islam either.
Right.
And
Okay.
so there was that. And there was also generally not being okay with the prescriptions when it came to women's roles within Islamic marriage, including obviously what the comment section and also I have called Rule 34 before. Yes, comment section, I have called it Rule 34.
Right. In Surah An-Nisa, yeah. Okay.
So
like the whole time you're finding out these things about Islam, did it get you questioning how could God prescribe this, or did you think God is real and God prescribed this?
Oh no, I was definitely thinking this is not what the God that I know would prescribe. This is not what the God that I grew up with would allow.
Okay. So what happened then?
Trigger warning again. So then came the moment when I basically threw my hands up and left altogether. And that is that I was contemplating jumping off of my third floor college apartment.
Okay.
And then I took a step back and went, wait a minute. A merciful God would not want me to be in this position. A merciful God would definitely not want me to be in a position where I feel like I have to do this or want to do this because of the religion that I'm in. And so if God really is the most compassionate and the most merciful, then God's going to understand if I just walk away. And that's when I did.
Well, I'm glad that you walked away in that direction that you did.
So So in other words, I left Islam because it brought me to that point.
Hmm. And then when you realize that the God that you believe in, or I guess the God that you aspire to believe in, wouldn't be upset at you for walking away from that religion, did that
Exactly.
relieve you from the guilt? Like, did you then stop practicing and feel okay with that?
I mean, the fear of hell, which was honestly the reason why my time as a Muslim lasted 3 years and not 6 months, followed me for a while.
Hmm.
And then that basically dissipated over time. And the way that I was able to dissipate it was to dive deeply into the opposite side of what had gotten me into Islam, the anti-Islam apologetics, videos like yours.
Hmm. And then
So
how did you receive those videos? What effect did they have on you?
they basically made me realize fully that I'd been sold on a lie. And then that made me go, yeah, I've confided in people that I regretted my decision to take the Shahada, but now I'm fully ready to admit that that was a terrible decision.
And how do you just I mean, that's one realization to have, that it wasn't a good decision to make at the time, but is there any positive that you got out of this realization?
I mean, like I said, I've basically been dealing with the trauma ever since, and I'm a lot more at peace with it now than I was, but it definitely followed me out for a long time.
Hmm. When you say you've been dealing with it, how do you deal with it?
Honestly, the way that I've been dealing with it is through theology.
What do
It
you
got
mean,
me
like
it got
learning
me
about
into that
other
mess.
religions?
Like I said, being a pastor's daughter, I have some sort of theological training with me because I grew up with it. Because my dad taught me how to think theologically.
Hmm.
So,
How to think theologically? What does that mean? Like how to basically, what I'm asking is, are you just going to be thinking in terms of religions for the rest of your life because that is what you grew up with?
possibly. I certainly still find religions interesting, but no, he really gave me the tools, I think, thinking that they would strengthen my faith in Christianity to deconstruct other religions and to think critically about religious texts in general. And it was that sort of thinking that got me into Islam in a way because I started seeing the Bible in that sort of way. And so then I basically thought, well, it got me into this mess, and I think it could get me out of it. And it did. That was how I went about deconstructing Islam afterwards. And it was okay.
But
I've read
at the time, like, you left Christianity and Islam was, it's almost like jumping off of a ship and you get on the next ship, which was Islam.
out of the
But
frying pan into the fire.
kind of thing, yeah. Um, but are you still doing the same thing where you're inspecting or learning about religions for the sake of finding one to get into, or is it just a general curiosity about the topic or something else?
Well, now it's general curiosity.
Okay.
Like I said, Mormonism, I've been diving into it recently, but definitely not for the purpose of joining it. In fact, very much the opposite.
Hmm.
It's both been a way to help me process the trauma that I experienced with Islam because I'm basically using it as a proxy for or a reflection of Islam because of the similarities between the two.
Hmm.
But also, I'm just genuinely curious about it.
Right. And how has that helped in your deconstruction journey, let's say?
It it gave me the opportunity to go back and say no.
Hmm. Are you saying that looking into other religions is, well, you can't go back and learn all that stuff for the first time about Islam. So saying no to it when it comes to other religions, or deconstructing it or thinking about it critically, it's almost like reliving your experience with Islam, except doing it differently?
Yeah, except now I'm approaching it the way I should have in the first place.
Right. And so thinking critically about other religions has helped you feel okay with, your journey with Islam, let's say.
Yes, but it's also turned me into what I would describe as, or have described as, a digestive enzyme for religions. Meaning that because of these experiences, I now have sort of a natural ability to deconstruct any religion. And of course, the result is that I will more than likely never follow any of them again.
Right. And is that pursuit of digesting religions a fruitful one, a helpful one in your life? Or will it get to a
Yes.
point where it runs out of helpfulness?
Oh, yeah, it's very helpful, I think. And, I mean, if nothing else, it's
Mhm.
entertaining.
Fair enough. Yeah. And you're no longer at risk of, I guess, dedicating your life to one of these ideas and only to discover things about it you don't like.
I'm sorry, could you say that again, please?
Yeah, like you're no longer at risk of dedicating yourself to an idea or religion only to later discover things about it that you didn't sign up for.
Right, exactly, which is exactly what happened with Islam. I converted under what I believe were false pretenses, like I mentioned before.
Hmm.
And then I realized them later. And then by that time, I was already in, and I had already, granted, not as much as you probably did growing up with Islam, but I definitely had that fear of hell ingrained in me at that point. And so it was,
I
in
don't
my
know.
mind,
Like
too late to leave.
you might have. I mean, I don't want you to discredit your own experience, because some people who have grown up in Islam don't really think about hell all that much. Some people do. So just because you were in it for a short amount of time doesn't mean that you didn't think about it often. So I don't dismiss that. I'm sure it must have been very distressing for you.
Yes.
But I'm glad that you're past that now.
And here's something else. And sometimes this is something that I'll still throw out to Muslim apologists just to see how they would respond. So, remember what I said about student loans before and how incensed I was at that substitute imam saying that people would go to hell for taking student loans. So that ties in with something else that I ran into very early on, which was that I'm a musician. Like, I have perfect pitch. I have a form of synesthesia that allows me to basically hear in color. And I've been a musician for most of my life. And in fact, I was able to afford college with no debt because I went on a music scholarship
Hmm.
for an instrument, no less.
For a very haram thing.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Of course, I didn't see it that way. And my reasoning for this was, well, why would God give me this talent if I weren't meant to use it? Kind of like what Lily said earlier.
Hmm.
And so I never stopped. I continued to listen to music. I really didn't let the fact that I was Muslim get in the way of that at all. But also, I was around some progressives who said, oh, it's fine as long as it's uplifting. Music in and of itself isn't haram. I went with that for a while, too.
Hmm. But you don't believe that anymore, thankfully.
Of course not. Of course
Yeah.
not. And it was later on when I heard the rationale for why music was haram, when I was kind of on my way out. I basically said, what the heck? Because I'll also add that I never believed in jinn at all.
Hmm.
Like, even when I was Muslim, I would have said, no, they definitely don't exist.
See, I wish that when you were being pitched Islam, when someone said, come here, we'll help you do your shahada, they would have taken you through all these details, because a Muslim
Me
is supposed to
too.
believe everything in the Quran. So you can't just say jinn don't exist, I don't believe in them, then you're a kafir. And which is all well and fine. Like, I'm not here saying you were never a Muslim to begin with. I'm saying
Well, some people
that
would, and some people have.
some people will say that, yeah. Point is, they shouldn't have gotten you, and they do that a lot, which is get you through the door and then be like, oh, don't worry about the details, but also simultaneously you have to believe in the details. But if they had clarified from the beginning, if essentially, and I'm gonna, this is gonna sound blunt and maybe mean, but if they gave you the entire pitch from the beginning, you might have thought, wow, this sounds a bit crazy, I'm gonna walk away now.
Oh, I
And that's how
definitely
it
would
would
have.
go. Yeah, that's how it would go for most converts. If they gave you all the details, you'd be like, I don't believe any of this stuff. I don't think I ever can. But if you kind of just get a glimpse of what it is and just the things that are easy to believe, and then they reel you in, then you can get to a point where you start doubting your sanity and you're like, wait, do I believe in jinn? But I'm glad that you never adopted that belief before
No,
leaving.
no. Like, even when I heard an imam give a khutbah on it, I still was like, no, this is insanity.
Hmm.
So anyway, like I said, for me, being Muslim did not affect my music at all whatsoever.
Hmm.
And in fact, I wore hijab to Carnegie Hall when
Wow.
my when my band was called to play there.
Hmm.
So my parents definitely weren't happy about that, but I did.
Right.
So
And them showing displeasure wouldn't have, changed your mind in any way. So it's a very difficult position to be put in for both you and your parents, because if someone here listening knows a convert, you can't just go to them and be like, I want you to take off your hijab. This is crazy. What you're doing is kind of insane. Why are you changing your entire life? That's not going to make them listen to you. They're only going to double down on that.
and believe me, they definitely did say that, and they told me
Mhm.
later that I was acting like I was in a cult.
Why were you acting like you were in a cult?
That's just what they said. That the way that I
Right.
approached
But I'm
Islam
saying,
was as
why
though
did
I
why
had
did they
joined
see
a
it
cult.
that way? It's because you were acting like you were in a cult, because people don't see large religions as cults, but they essentially are.
Yeah, and I would say that now, but
Hmm.
that's basically what they said then. And so, like I said, I got into a debate with someone over the quote unquote issue of me taking a music scholarship for my education. Because,
Hmm.
like I said, if I didn't have that scholarship, the only other options would be to drop out or take student loans.
Right.
So, like I said, sometimes I will pitch this to, like, to this day, I'll pitch this to apologists just to see how they'd respond to it. But
Hmm.
this person did actually say that I should drop out.
Right. You should drop out because it's this idea of it's almost like juju or energy in a way, where like your money came from a haram source, or the money for your scholarship came from a haram source. So there's no barakah, there's no like blessing in what you do going forward. Or if you, it's kind of like that. Like there's bad juju, there's bad energy on that money now. So there's not going to
Yeah,
be blessing.
but,
Um,
but also
you
because
know,
the terms of the scholarship were that I would continue to play.
that too. Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad you didn't, because you could have. There would have been someone in your position who thought, you know what matters more, God or this world? Obviously, God and the torture that God promised and all that kind of stuff in heaven. Therefore, let me derail my entire career. So hopefully, you didn't do that,
Of
right?
course not.
I'm glad, but
Nope.
it's not, of course, though, because I can see people in your position making decisions like that. I've spoken to many who have made decisions like that. So I guess cautionary tale for converts out there, people thinking about converting, be careful what you invest into this, because before long you're likely to realize, oh, this isn't the truth, and then you've lost all of what you invested, including, investing not going to school. That's a very bad investment to make.
Yeah, but nope. I finished. I graduated summa cum laude. Thank you very
I'm
much.
happy to hear. Yeah.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Um, I have to wrap this up soon so I could take the last caller, but I want to ask you, if you were speaking to someone right now who was in your position back when you were 18, what would you tell them?
Run.
But okay, but what if they don't believe you? Say it in more words. Why should they run?
Okay. Well, I mean, I could go on about, hey, just so you know, that thing you believe about Aisha being 16, it's not actually true. You
Okay.
might want to look into that more. But also, you really should do more research before you commit to this, because I guarantee you that you are going to regret it if you just rush into it without having all the information.
Mhm. I mean, that's Muslims should like you saying that, because you're just saying inform yourself, learn more about Islam before you utter those words and say I'm a Muslim, because it's not easy going back from that.
And honestly, an easy thing that I could have done, because I did not read the Quran before I converted, which sounds insane now, but nonetheless, it's a reality. I would have.
Most converts, okay, let me say this bluntly. Most converts did not have time to read the entire Quran. And by read, I don't just mean, read an English translation once and that's it. No, because the Quran is so disjointed of a book. In
Uh-huh.
order to follow a story, you have to pause, go pick up another book, do some research, figure out what's the backstory, what are the different opinions. That's reading the Quran. And that would take a person many, many, many hours. I highly doubt that most converts out there put in all that work before uttering the words, ashhadu an la ilaha illallah and so on. So
Yeah,
yeah, you're not alone.
I see. But point is, what I would have done is open the Quran,
Mhm.
point out the Miriam discrepancy, and of course, I would have recognized that immediately had I seen it then.
Mhm.
Because growing up Christian, I would have straight up been like, yeah, that's not right. There's no way. So I would have recognized that instantly, and that would have snapped me out of it. Or same thing with the verse about there being a boundary between two sets of water. Like, I'm like, my field of study is science. I know that estuaries exist,
Mhm.
which, side note, that was a challenge that I accepted to debunk Islam in the fewest words possible. I just said estuaries exist in
Right.
reference to that verse. So if I saw that as a potential convert, that probably also would have snapped me out of it.
And can you explain for people what is an estuary?
So the verse basically states that there's a boundary between salt and fresh water that keeps them from mixing. Estuaries are an entire habitat that rely on salt and freshwater mixing. One example would be the Chesapeake Bay in Virginia.
Right. So it's the area where a freshwater stream meets salty water.
Yes.
And that's the thing. And they do mix. It's not some kind of magic barrier where they
Nope.
don't touch. But if you take a picture from above, and these are pictures that circulate in the Muslim world, you'll see like muddy water and then it's blue or something. And then they're like, look, there's a barrier. But like, what do you expect? Do you expect all of the river to turn clear, or do you expect all the ocean to turn muddy? Like, obviously there's going to be a gradual process, and that's where you see as a line. But yeah, somehow I guess the miracle claim I've heard is that how could the prophet have known about the presence of estuaries or how they look like? But what, like, has he not spoken to anyone who has eyes, who's been anywhere? It's such a weird miracle, honestly. But yeah, I guess you would have noticed if you had read the Quran.
Yes, I would have, and especially if I had then gone and read that explanation for that verse.
Right.
So it's things like that that would have snapped me out of it and made me go, yeah, I shouldn't do this. So
Mhm.
that is something that I would definitely tell 8-year-old me is please read the Quran before you do this.
Right. So that's great advice. If you want to convert to Islam, go read the entire Quran and don't half-ass it. Read the entire thing, ask questions. If an answer sounds like you just don't know enough or you'll figure it out someday, don't accept that for an answer. Keep digging. Keep asking questions.
Yeah.
Um, and hopefully that's what you need to not make a bad decision or something that you might regret later. But I hope that, again, this isn't about regrets. I'm glad that you have made it past that. You're out of the religion now, and you've learned a few things from that experience, and it seems like you're carrying it forward in your dissection of other religions.
All right. So I'm just going to end with one more thing, and that is the moment that the glass shattered and I really could not piece things back together anymore, was when I heard that Muhammad endorsed the practice of cupping. Which that
Is
sounds
that bloodletting, right?
Yeah, which that sounds like an awfully weird hill to die on, considering anything else I could have gone with. Like I still didn't know about female sex slavery and stuff like that. Obviously, that would have been in the same category. But the reason why that was a hill to die on for me was because that I happened to be scientifically trained, like I said. And so I was very well aware that that practice has no medical benefit whatsoever. So the fact that he was saying that was what made me go, yeah, this guy really doesn't know what he's talking about. And I mean, of course, also evolution denial, not cool with that. That's one of the reasons why I left Christianity. If I'd known about that ahead of time, probably would have influenced my decision as well.
Right. I'm glad you know now. But yeah, bloodletting, for those who don't know, it's a belief that is popularized by Muhammad, I suppose. It's not exclusive to him, but correct me if I'm wrong, but it's something about using these cups to, like, first you cut, make a cut in someone's skin, use a suction cup and let out bad blood, and that's supposed to make you healthier. That's the summary of it. Am I right?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's nothing scientific about that. It's actually, there's chances of infection, if anything, but it doesn't really improve your health in any way. So maybe Muhammad was wrong. Was he not a messenger? Did he not consult God on that? I don't know, but I guess that's what shattered it for you.
Yeah, and then other things built on that later, like I said. And definitely if I'd known about the female sex slavery thing, I would have been like, oh hell no, I'm not I'm not even going to touch that. Absolutely not. I just didn't know about that until after I left Islam.
Right. Again, that's the kind of stuff they should tell you before you sign up. But I guess this is why we exist, to inform people about what they're signing up for, because Muslims won't do a good job at it when they're trying to invite you to join. So yeah, I'm glad that you're here to tell people about this.
Well, I appreciate that.
And I'm just noticing now your profile picture, the joke there, the Ferris wheel. That's funny. I didn't notice it earlier because I guess I'm a little rusty. Get it? Because there's oxygen there.
And I am a chemist, so there you go.
Nice. Tell us another chemistry joke.
I would, but all the good ones are gone. Probably wouldn't get the reaction that you expect.
Nice. Yeah, I am inert. I'm a what was it called? Those gases?
Noble gas.
I'm a noble gas. That's why there's no reaction. That was nice. Fun. Thank you for joining again, and I really appreciate you sharing with us. I love hearing from everyone, and everyone's story is pretty, I guess, colorful and unique in its own way. So thanks for being here.
You're welcome.
Have a great rest of your evening, and we'll see you around.
You too. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks again to the caller. We have one caller left, but let me just read some chats first. Shantae Vessel, thank you for the super chat. They're asking, how can I call? Typically, I post a link 30 minutes before the live stream, a link to join as one of the callers. Today's a continuation of yesterday's live stream, so no new callers today, just taking the ones that were queued up. Apparently, I missed this. I think I saw it going on, but I didn't participate on the Discord server, which this channel has a Discord server. We had a watch party for The Message last week on the server. If you want to join and watch movies and do stuff with other members of the community, links are in the description. All you got to do is become a YouTube member or a Patreon supporter and link your Discord account, and that's how you become a member. And then you have a conversation with me and verify that you're a real person, and then you're in. Speaking of which, Ender Meaner, thank you so much for gifting 10 memberships to people who are watching. I don't know how it's assigned. I think it's random and it's based on who's been commenting the most sometimes. I'm not even sure. So maybe it'll increase your chances by being an active commenter on the live chat. Maybe not. But 10 people got a membership today. So thank you for that. What else? Ethiopian Soldier says, don't worry, millions convert every year to Islam and stay after learning more. I mean, bro, we can't even count the statistics about Muslims who leave, like myself, who are born into it. There are no statistics for how many converts leave Islam. If there's any counting being done, it's the celebratory, hey, we got one more, but no one follows up with them. And trust me, I've been speaking with a lot of ex-converts, and they also don't think they're counted anywhere. No one knows about them. They just quietly, or they quietly withdraw, or they tell people and they kind of excommunicate them or stop talking to them. So this myth that there are, the numbers of Muslims all over the world, they're inflated because there is no visibility for people who leave. That's what we're doing this for. And Kikno, thank you for being a member for 10 months at least, if not longer. Thank you. I appreciate that. All right, moving on to the last caller, Jolo. I hope you're ready, because adding you to the live stream now. Hey, Jolo, can you hear me? You are muted. Hopefully they're ready to join the stream. I know you've been waiting for a while. In the meantime, let me keep an eye on the chat. Marvelous says, in America, 32% of people who are born Muslim end up leaving. Interesting statistic. I don't know where it's from, but I am not surprised. Lean says, damn, Aladdin, drink some water. See, if you help fund this idea, I'll create a mask with a hydration system, like one of those camelback bags for runners, where I just have a bag of water behind me and tubes running into my mask. Otherwise, I can't drink water on long live streams. So yeah, I guess I've got to be dry for another half hour or more. Jolo, are you there? You are muted. Can't hear you talking. What else? Let me read some more comments. Let's go, says Lucy. I don't know how I'm able to keep an eye on the chat sometimes, but I try. Goro is asking, is the server public? I always assumed it was paywalled. I mean, it is paywalled in the sense that you got to be a member to initially join, just to, make sure that no randos who are trying to ruin things are joining. But once you are a member, if you're participating and if you can't afford to keep paying to be a member, we're pretty lenient about that. As long as you're, an active and, you're an active member and you're helping the community grow, we're happy to have you. Bobo says, hey, I'm in the waiting area. Is that you? Oh, okay, they're joining again. Let's see if that works. Let's try it out. Hey, Jolo, can you hear me? Yeah. Can you hear me? Are you there?
Hello.
Hey, how's it going? Can you hear me there? Hey, Jolo. You are on the stream.
For some reason, I can't.
Oh, for some reason you can't hear me. Hello, are you there? And they're gone. For a second, we heard him. Lean says, how do I verify? So in the description, there's going to be instructions for how to link your Discord server to your YouTube membership. So follow those instructions, and then once you're in the server, you'll know how to get verified. If it's not working, just reach out to me on Discord. It's Apostate Aladdin. All right, let's try again. Hey, Jolo, can you hear me? I can hear you. You can't hear me. That is very frustrating. Are you there? Marcel is asking only ex-Muslims, well, and questioning Muslims. So if you're a Muslim who has some doubts, we can talk about them. KitKat says, we need a plant update. Well, my pothos are doing really well. I have several of them, and they're all cuttings that I got for free. Spider plant's doing well. This tropical plant over there, it's doing well as well. But I do sometimes have some, what are they called? Spider mites on the spinach and the pothos. So sometimes they struggle, but I've got a lot more plants in other rooms too. Plants are doing well. Shaitan is coming for the stream. Yeah, it seems like call's not really working for the last caller. Well, let's try again. Hopefully it works. We'll give him one more chance.
All
Hey,
right.
Jolo, can you hear me? Can you hear me? It doesn't seem to be working. I have a feeling this might be a troll, though. I'm a little concerned.
Hello.
Hey, Jolo, you
Can you
there?
hear me now?
I can hear you. We've been able to hear you. Are you able to hear us? Doesn't seem to be working. Okay. Unfortunately, it's not in the cards for Jolo today, but fear not. We're going to have another live stream next Wednesday. Already should be posted. That one is for Muslims to tell me why they do believe. So if you want to join that one, if the criteria applies, you're welcome to join. For ex-Muslims or questioning Muslims, I'll have another one soon. I'm thinking these days, maybe I should have multiple live streams a week. Just have a long conversation with one person would be a bit better than shorter conversations, but we'll see how that goes. Just keep an eye on the community posts. I'll let you know what I decide there. So thank you everyone for joining today. Really appreciate you being here. Sorry to the last caller that we couldn't take you. Can't really wait for to fix this issue. So hopefully we catch you on another live stream. And special thanks to the helpers behind the scenes and the members of the community and the supporters and people who have been watching this live. I really appreciate your support. Let's give people a shout out by name here. This list might be outdated, so I apologize. I need to update this list. Thank you everyone for your support. And as always, think critically and think for yourself and consider watching one of these videos next. Bye-bye.